Chapter 1499. She was not wearing any particularly gorgeous clothing, but no matter what kind of clothing it was, as long as it was worn on her body, it would become exceptionally outstanding. She did not wear any jewelry, nor did she apply any makeup on her face, because to her, jewelry and makeup were all superfluous. No matter how precious the jewelry was, it would not be able to diminish her radiance, and no matter how noble the makeup was, it would not be able to increase her beauty. Her beauty was indescribable by anyone. Some people used flowers to compare beauty, but how could flowers be as moving as her? Some people would say that she was like a person in a painting, but how could a painting brush be able to capture her charm? Even the fairies in the heavens would not be as gentle as her. Regardless of who it was, as long as they glanced at her, they would never be able to forget her. But she did not seem like she truly lived in this world. How could there be such a beauty like her in this world? It was as if she would suddenly disappear from the ground at any moment, riding the wind and flying away. Not only were the people in the room stunned, even Song Qinshu, who was used to seeing stunning beauties outside the window, was also dumbstruck, thinking that this woman's beauty could only be compared to Chen Yuan, Tajkis, Xiao Long Nu and a few others. But he had seen too many stunning beauties. Very quickly he regained his composure and no longer looked at her, instead turning his head to stare at Zhao Min beside him. As a woman, Zhao Min was also awed by her beauty. While she was sighing, she suddenly sensed Song Qingshu's gaze. Turning her head, she discovered that he was staring at her with a burning gaze. She was stunned at first, then she became furious. Even if you think I am not as beautiful as her, there is no need to humiliate me like this. Actually, she was underestimating herself too much. In terms of appearance, she was not inferior to the other party, and if her countess temperament was added, in some aspects, she might even be a cut above the other party. But women have always been sensitive. Sensing Song Qingshu's gaze, she momentarily felt dizzy. Who knew that Song Qingshu would reply in a gentle voice, "The woman inside is too beautiful, only by looking at you can I not prostrate myself under her pomegranate skirt." Glib tongue. Zhao Min blushed and immediately turned her face away. However, the joy between her brows could not be concealed. The people in the room gradually recovered. Looking at Xiao Xia's expression, Yelu Isin revealed an enigmatic smile. "Fuma, what do you think of this woman? This woman only exists in the heavens. How many times have I heard of her in the mortal world?" When Xiao Xia said this, the image of Xiao Guanyin that he had seen in the imperial palace appeared in his mind. In reality, Xiao Guanyin was not inferior in the slightest, especially the extreme charm that seeped into the bones in her dignified manner. It made his heart itch unbearably. But she was the emperor's woman. He didn't even dare to think too much, unlike this woman who had endless space for imagination. Everyone could hear the hidden lust in Xiao Xia's voice. The woman frowned slightly, anger flashed across Xiao 11lang's face, and Yelu Isin laughed even more happily. However, Xiao Shima quickly shook his head. "This woman is good, but she can only be enjoyed if she's alive. Even if she's a real fairy, I can't be involved in a treason case just for a moment of pleasure." Xiao 11lang finally couldn't hold back and said angrily, "What are you saying?" Yelu Isin stopped him and said with a half-smile, "You think I'm going to use this woman to seduce you? Isn't that so?" Xiao Shima's expression immediately turned ugly. Yelu Isin chuckled lightly, not knowing whether it was mockery or disdain. "Fuma, although you're an outstanding man, you're not qualified to enjoy such a beautiful woman. You!" Xiao Shima finally regained his rationality. He knew that he was right, but he still couldn't keep his face. Yelu Isin ignored him and continued, "This woman is destined to be owned by only the emperor. Then why did you bring her here?" Xiao Shima said angrily. Yelu Isin replied, "Fuma, didn't you just say that reporting Yelu Qi would implicate you in a treason case? But with her around, not only will you not be in any danger, you will also be rewarded by the emperor." "What do you mean?" Xiao Shima frowned. Yelu Isin paced around the woman as he said, "As long as you agree to cooperate with me, from that moment on she will become your sister. You don't have to worry about the relevant procedures, I will make it flawless. When the time comes, you can report her and offer this beautiful sister to the Emperor in the name of atonement. At that time the Emperor will definitely be pleased. Not only will he not kill you, but he will also reward you for your loyalty. Once you become the imperial uncle, won't your meteoric rise be just around the corner?" This. Xiao Shima's eyes flickered. Clearly, he was already somewhat tempted. Outside the window, Song Qingshu couldn't help but exclaim, "Isn't he the Emperor's son-in-law? Then he will become the Emperor's brother-in-law. Is there such a thing?" Zhao Min explained in a low voice, "The dynasties of the grasslands don't care about this as much as you Han dynasties do. Even after the death of the last Mongolian Khan, the women in the harem, except for the birth mother and a few others, will all be inherited by the next Khan. There's nothing wrong with this." A strange expression appeared on Song Qingshu's face. After a long time, he squeezed out 4 words, "The noble circles are really messy." Zhao Min was rendered speechless by his words. She snorted and looked away, ignoring him. Song Qingshu smiled and continued to look inside. Song Qingshu noticed that during this time, the woman didn't seem very happy. There seemed to be an unresolvable sorrow between her brows, as if her heart had died. It seems that she was forced. I wonder what her name is? Song Qingshu thought to himself. As if thinking the same thing as him, Xiao Shima raised her head and asked, "Just who is this woman? I can't have a woman of unknown origin as my sister. I don't want to be consigned to eternal damnation by her in the future." "It's no big deal to tell Fuma. This woman's name is Shun Bijuan. She was originally the Southern Song dynasty's crown princess, so she is destined to be the emperor's woman. Fuma, you should believe me now." Yelu Isen's calm words were like a clap of thunder, shocking Song Qingshu so much that he couldn't speak. "So she's Shun Bijuan." The Southern Song dynasty was in an uproar because of the kidnapping of the crown princess. The people of the Imperial City Department couldn't find her no matter how hard they searched. He hadn't expected to find her in Liao, thousands of miles away. Thinking of some of the plots in the original novel, Song Qingshu thought that it was most likely this Xiao Xialong who had kidnapped her. Everyone said that beautiful women had unlucky fate. It seemed that this was true. Shun Bijuan's beauty had not only brought her luck, but brought her endless disaster. Even if she was successfully rescued, even if she was pure, with the Southern Song dynasty's prevailing etiquette, she was destined not to become the crown princess. The imperial family would not allow such a tainted woman to marry into the family. Even more frightening was that the Shun family had been destroyed. Even if she returned, there would be no place for her to stand. Looking at the delicate woman in the room, Song Qingshu couldn't help but feel a boundless sense of pity. It had nothing to do with her beauty, but rather her pitiful circumstances. But he was also very curious. Since this woman was Shun Bijuan, how could Yelu Isen be so sure that she would do as he asked? Wasn't he afraid that she would expose the truth in front of the emperor? As soon as this thought came to him, he became more and more curious. Unfortunately, he had thought of many possibilities and rejected them all. He didn't understand where Yelu Isen's confidence came from. At this time, Yelu Isen spoke again. "Although the common people feel that being the emperor's son-in-law is a great honor, you yourself should know what a mere son-in-law can bring you. But as long as you cooperate with me, I guarantee that you will soar in the future and become an existence that all officials look up to. I think you know what choice you should make." Xiao Shima chuckled. "If I don't cooperate, you will probably accuse me of having an affair with someone else." Yelu Isen smiled slightly. "The emperor's son-in-law is a smart person. There is no need to be so explicit." Xiao Shima's expression changed several times. After an intense struggle, The temptation of the imperial uncle and Yelu Isen's power grew stronger and stronger. Fine, I agree. Yelu Isen laughed heartily. I hope we can work well together. The two sides chatted for a while longer before Yelu Isen stood and said his goodbyes. When the time is right, I will contact you. For now, I won't disturb the Emperor's good night. Xiao Xiama hurriedly stood to send him off, but his eyes couldn't help but wander over to Shinbijuan. He had just seen such a devastatingly beautiful woman, so how could he possibly be interested in her? After Yelu Isen left with Xiao Shi and Shinbijuan, Song Qinshu said to Zhao Min, "Should I take this opportunity to test if Xiao Shima is Murong Jingyue?" Zhao Min stopped him and pulled him away from the courtyard. "There's no need to test. He definitely isn't Murong Jingyue," Zhao Min said indifferently when they reached a secluded area. Song Qinshu nodded. "He doesn't look like him." It had to be said that Murong Jingyue was an astute person, but Xiao Xiama didn't have any of his temperament at all. "Are you friends with Yelu Qi?" Zhao Min suddenly asked. Song Qinshu hesitated. "Not really, but we've interacted a few times. We can barely be considered friends." Zhao Min smiled. "That's good. Otherwise, you'd have to make a difficult choice between your friendship and the world." Song Qinshu smiled bitterly. If it were Xiao Feng, he might have hesitated, but Yelu Qi wasn't a saint. He couldn't take care of everyone. "Looking at your eyes just now, it seems that you're going to save Shinbijuan?" Zhao Min suddenly asked. Song Qinshu hesitated for a moment, but finally nodded. "Yes, she's really too pitiful. What's more, some of the people who are looking for her are my good friends." Zhao Min snorted. "In the end, isn't it because she's beautiful? As a playboy, your protective feelings for the fairer sex are acting up again?" Song Qinshu said sternly. "Of course not, it's because the Shin family was exterminated not long ago. Before old Master Shin died, he asked me to save her. If I didn't see her then it's fine, but if I did, how could I not save her?" "According to what you said, then I can't save her," Zhao Min replied in a low voice. "Thank you, Valentine_M, Bining, Fomin, Shuyu 174259192. Soy sauce, passerby ding, Niklu, Wifa 360. Chapter 1500. Why? Song Qinshu asked, puzzled. "Since the Shin family has been destroyed, where can she go if you save her?" Zhao Min asked. "What's more, I saw a faint desire to die in her eyes just now. The reason why she was at Yelu Isen's mercy was that she was threatened by her parents and family. That's why she didn't resist. After you rescued her, she found that the Shin family was gone. Do you think she would commit suicide?" "That's true." Song Qinshu nodded. "But it's dangerous to let a girl like her go to the trapped devil's Denver. Are you trying to say that she's such a devastatingly beautiful girl?" Zhao Min said with a faint smile. "Don't worry. If it was under other circumstances, she might really lose her chastity. But since Yelu Isen plans to present her to His Majesty in the future, he will not let anyone harm her before that. Otherwise, all his efforts will be in vain." Seeing that Song Qinshu was still hesitating, Zhao Min continued, "Don't forget the purpose of your trip. Although Yelu Isen is a treacherous official, as long as his plan succeeds, Liao will be in chaos. At that time, the pressure on the Jin Kingdom will be easily solved. Maybe you can take the opportunity to recruit people like Yelu Qi for your own use. Why not?" After all, Song Qinshu was no longer the reckless and impulsive teenager. He realized that if he saved Shinbijuan now, he would alert the enemy and Yelu Isen's plan would be postponed indefinitely. In that case, Liao would not be in chaos and would naturally send troops to the south. "Your Highness is right. For the time being, let's wait and see," Song Qinshu said in a low voice. Zhao Min pursed her lips and smiled faintly. "Sitting and watching doesn't mean that we can't do anything. Didn't I mention to you before that another suspect is Xiao 11th Lang? This person's background is unknown and his identity is mysterious. You should take the opportunity to test him and see what secrets he has. Song Qingshu said hesitantly, just now I saw that Xiao Shi Lang has the air of a Yanjiao poet who sings a sad and tragic song. Such a character really does not resemble Murong Jingyue's despicable character. Zhao Min was also a little worried. I don't think so either, but you can't judge a book by its cover. Maybe Murong Jingyue is pretending to be like this. It's better to investigate. I think that Xiao 11 Lang's kung fu is quite high. If I go with you, I'll only hold you back. I won't accompany you. I'll go back first and see if there are any other clues. All right, be careful on the road, Song Qingshu reminded. Zhao Min smiled sweetly. Don't worry, I have many ways to save my life. Besides, don't I still have the traceless sand treading that you taught me? Escaping is not a problem. Song Qingshu knew that she was resourceful and had no need to worry. After saying goodbye to her with a smile, he chased after Xiao 11 Lang. On the way, Song Qingshu couldn't help but think to himself, although the chaos in Liao is very beneficial to me, it's not beneficial to Mongolia at all. Zhao Min is so smart. Didn't she think of this? Thinking of the woman in the original work who gave up everything for love, Song Qingshu was both surprised and delighted. Could it be that she has already unknowingly valued me so much? Even though Xiao 11 Lang had a head start, Song Qingshu's lightness skill gave chase with all his might. It didn't take long for him to catch up with their convoy. Yelu Isin was nowhere to be found at this time. Only Xiao 11 Lang was left driving the carriage and escorting Shin Bijuan. Song Qingshu wasn't in a hurry to go over. After all, Shin Bijuan was with him now. If he made a move now and the news reached Yelu Isin's ears, he would know that the plot just now had been exposed. This wasn't what Song Qingshu wanted to see. Suddenly, Shin Bijuan's terrified scream came from the carriage. Song Qingshu's heart skipped a beat when he heard it, and he instinctively wanted to rush over. But Xiao 11 Lang was closer by this time. In an instant, he turned around and lifted the curtain to see what was happening inside. At this moment, a cold light flashed in the night sky. Shin Bijuan, who was hiding behind the carriage door, stabbed down with her jade hairpin. It was fast and urgent. Coupled with the fact that it happened so suddenly, an ordinary person would probably have fallen for it. But Xiao 11 Lang was someone who often rolled on the edge of life and death, so how could he be tricked by a little girl like her? In an instant, he grabbed her wrist and instinctively swatted at her with his other hand. Why is it you? At this time, Xiao 11 Lang finally saw Shin Bijuan's appearance clearly. He hurriedly moved his palm to the side by a foot, instantly shattering a large hole in the wall of the carriage. Just kill me. Shin Bijuan raised her head and stared at him rather stubbornly. You've been very cooperative all this time. So you were looking for an opportunity to escape. Xiao 11 Lang let go of her hand and smiled bitterly. Usually, she had many guards by her side, so she didn't have a chance to escape even if she wanted to. Now that it was the dead of night and there was only Xiao 11 Lang, she could successfully escape if she killed him. It was a pity that her long-planned attack had failed. Humph. Shin Bijuan turned her face away and ignored him. Xiao 11 Lang frowned and suddenly said, It's one thing for you to attack me, but you mustn't take any risks with other people. They don't have my good temper. Hearing his words, Shin Bijuan turned her head to look at him in surprise, as if she couldn't figure out why he would say such a thing. Hiding in the shadows, Song Qingshu watched all of this with a half-smile. It looked like it was just like in the original work. Xiao 11 Lang had unwittingly fallen in love with Shin Bijuan. Thinking about it, it made sense. It was very difficult for a man to not fall for such an otherworldly, fairy-like woman. Next, Xiao 11 Lang brought Shin Bijuan to a secret residence. Song Qingshu noticed that although the outside looked calm, there were many hidden sentries inside. Danger lurked everywhere. It looked like this was where Shin Bijuan was usually imprisoned. Song Qingshu only remembered this place, and had no intention of going in. He didn't want to alert the enemy when the time came. After about the time it took for an incense stick to burn, Xiao 11 Lang came out as expected. Song Qingshu nodded to himself. Yelu Isin wants to offer Shin Bijuan to His Majesty. He definitely won't allow a man to stay the night at her place. He quietly followed behind Xiao 11 Lang. He could see that he was a little dazed at the moment. If he made a move at this time, it would probably be very easy for him to succeed. Everyone says that beautiful women are the source of trouble. Although there are suspicions that women are the scapegoats, there is some truth to this. Since ancient times, it has always been heroes who have a weakness for the charms of a beautiful woman. Song Qingshu easily guessed that Xiao 11 Lang was definitely troubled by Shin Bijuan's matter. On one hand, it was the woman he loved, and on the other hand, it was his lord who had treated him with great kindness. How should he choose? Was he really going to watch the woman he loved marry another man? In a short period of time, Song Qingshu's mind was filled with a melodramatic drama about sin, debt, and ethic. Just as he was rejoicing in other people's misfortune, he suddenly thought of Yelu Nanshan's engagement and could no longer smile. Following that, the two gloomy men walked in silence, one in front of the other. Seeing that they were about to reach the imperial palace, Song Qingshu suddenly realized that Xiao 11 Lang was the assistant inspector of the imperial palace. Right now, he was most likely heading to the imperial palace for his shift. If he didn't make a move now, it would be too late. So, his figure flashed and he went to grab him. Although Xiao 11 Lang was a little dazed because of Shin Bijuan's matter, he was still a top-notch expert. Sensing that something was wrong, he rolled to the ground and at the same time pulled out the curved knife at his waist and swung it behind him. A snow-white flash of the knife instantly slashed behind him in a sweeping manner. Song Qingshu couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. This move was both defensive and offensive, and it was perfectly integrated, as expected of the super expert who became one with the knife in the original work. However, with Song Qingshu's current cultivation, and the fact that he had the advantage of launching a sneak attack, how could he be injured by this stunning knife? Actually, if he wanted to, he could subdue Xiao 11 Lang in a few moves. However, firstly, he wanted to test out the other's martial arts, and secondly, he didn't want to expose his identity. After all, with Xiao 11 Lang's top-notch martial arts, there were not many people in the world who had the ability to subdue him in a few moves. Then, after getting rid of some older seniors, his identity was on the verge of being revealed. He didn't want to alert the enemy and alert Murong Jingyue, who was hiding in the dark. The two of them exchanged dozens of moves. Song Qingshu secretly frowned. Xiao Shi Lang's martial arts style was unique, and most of his attainments were in saber technique. He had fought with Murong Jingyue before, so he knew that Murong Jingyue's martial arts were extensive but somewhat messy. Right now, Xiao Shi Lang was focused and refined, so it was obvious that they were not of the same style. Still somewhat unwilling to give up, Song Qingshu finally used a killing move to pull at his face just in case. Xiao 11 Lang was shocked, and the curved knife in his hand gave off an astonishing light. Even if he were to splash water on it now, it wouldn't miss a single drop. Unfortunately, it still couldn't stop the other's hand. Song Qingshu's hand was like a visitor from the heavens, ignoring his defense and grabbing at his face. Huh! With such direct contact with his face, Song Qingshu could naturally tell that he wasn't wearing anything like a human skin mask. It seemed that he was indeed not Murong Jingyue. Xiao 11 Lang had thought that he was dead for sure when the other party grabbed his face directly. After all, an expert of this level could easily crush a rock with a casual grab, and his head couldn't be harder than a rock. He had closed his eyes and waited for his death, but after a long time, there was no movement at all. When he opened his eyes, that person had already disappeared. Xiao 11 Lang couldn't help but be alarmed. If it weren't for the fact that his somewhat tattered clothes proved that there had been a fierce battle just now, he would have thought that he had run into a ghost. He went straight back to Zhao Min's residence. Zhao Min was in the study, deep in thought. When she saw him return, she hurriedly asked, "How was it?" Song Qingshu shook his head. "It wasn't Murong Jingyue." Zhao Min revealed an expression that said she had expected it, but she still couldn't hide her disappointment. "It seems that all our leads have been cut off. I've gone through these names again, but I didn't see any new suspicious characters." Song Qingshu hurriedly comforted her. "Murong Jingyue is treacherous and cunning. If he could be found so easily, he wouldn't have been able to hide in Liao for so long without attracting attention. Don't worry, since we're in Shangjing now, the fox will show his tail." "I hope so." A deep worry emerged in Zhao Min's eyes. After all, she shuddered at the thought that there was a worm lurking in her head. Thanks to Shuyu 534945889, Autumn's Soliloquy, Huang Weining 0, Pdruer, Extraordinary Mars, Lay 2595, First Rays of Dawn, Age, Shuyu 31145287, Boy Without a Trace, Windy, Sword Stops Dragon Carriage, Lion 201310, Oath of Luck, Hypocrisy, Why Time Breeds Love. Why. Chapter 1501. That night, the two of them got together and analyzed the civil and military officials in Shangjing again. Unfortunately, after discussing for the second half of the night, they still did not get any result. In the end, because they were too tired, the two of them unknowingly fell asleep in the study. The next day, Zhao Min woke up even earlier. She was shocked at first, but when she saw Song Qingshu sleeping on the table opposite her, a faint smile gradually appeared on the corner of her mouth. She tiptoed out to freshen up. Zhao Min noticed that the servants were looking at her strangely. At first, she was a little puzzled, but she quickly realized that these servants were shocked that she slept in the same room with a man. Although the two of them did not have any physical contact in the room, the people outside did not know. In their eyes, Zhao Min had obviously slept with Song Qingshu. Zhao Min's cheeks turned red, and a trace of anger flashed in her eyes. However, it was not convenient to explain such a misunderstanding. Could she just catch a servant and say that nothing happened between her and Song Qingshu last night? First, they would definitely not believe it, and second, she could not afford to lose face. After washing up in a hurry, she came back and found that the initiator was still snoring loudly. Zhao Min was furious. She directly walked over and kicked his stool. "Lazy pig, get up!" Song Qingshu was instantly startled awake. If he was not good at martial arts, he might have fallen to the ground. "What's going on?" Seeing the glistening water stain at the corner of his mouth, Zhao Min threw the towel in her hand to him with a look of disgust. "You are so old, but you still drool while sleeping. So disgusting." When she said this, her little face could not help but turn red. It turned out that when she woke up, she was in a similar situation. Song Qingshu smiled embarrassedly and took the towel to wipe the corner of his mouth. "I don't know how many lifetimes of good fortune I have accumulated to be able to have the princess wash up and serve me." As he spoke, he suddenly smelled a faint fragrance on the towel. He could not help but look strange. "It smells so good. Did you use it before?" Only then did Zhao Min realize that she had just thrown her things to him. She was secretly ashamed, but she couldn't admit it. "How could it be mine? It belongs to Auntie Wu, who cooks in the yard." "Oh, in that case, I will use it to wipe my feet," Song Qingshu said deliberately. "How dare you?" This sentence instantly caused Zhao Min to frown. Seeing Song Qingshu's expression, she immediately understood that she had fallen into his trap. "Bastard," Zhao Min scolded, but she couldn't help but laugh first. "I can't be bothered to argue with you. After washing up, let's go out and taste the delicacies of Shangjing." Very quickly, the two of them appeared on the main street of the city and tasted the various specialties of Shangjing. Because they couldn't think of any clues after racking their brains for so long last night, the two of them tacitly didn't mention Murong Jingyue's matter and treated it as a complete vacation. It was rare for the two of them to have such a chance to relax, so they especially cherished it. It was a pity that they didn't enjoy it for a long time before one of Zhao Min's men came and glanced at Song Qingshu. The man hesitated again and again. After what happened last night, he had already recognized this person as the son-in-law of the Ruyang mansion, and thought that there was no need to hide it from him. However, Zhao Min had always been very strict with her subordinates, and he was worried that he would be punished by Zhao Min afterward. In the end, he didn't say it publicly, but approached Zhao Min and reported it in a low voice. What happened? After the man left, Song Qingshu asked casually. It was not difficult for him to eavesdrop with his skills, but out of respect, he didn't eavesdrop on the man's conversation. The delegation of the Southern Song dynasty is about to arrive at a small town 30 miles away from the city. They could have entered Shangjing today, but it seems that the Southern Song dynasty attached great importance to the auspicious time, so they planned to rest outside the city for a night and enter the city tomorrow morning, Zhao Min answered. The delegation of the Southern Song dynasty. Song Qingshu's eyes narrowed. He knew that they were here to discuss how to attack the Jin kingdom from both the north and the south. Today is the best chance to sabotage the peace talk. If we wait until they enter the city, they will be watched by all the forces, and with the protection of the Liao army, it will be more than twice as difficult to do anything. Song Qingshu's expression was strange. Are you hinting me to do something? Zhao Min smiled sweetly. I didn't say anything. Song Qingshu finally couldn't hold back his curiosity. He looked at her with burning eyes and asked, logically speaking, the Song dynasty and the Liao dynasty attacking the Jin kingdom is the most advantageous for the Mongolians. Why do you help me? Zhao Min blushed and looked away. You don't have to think about it. I'm not helping you, I'm helping myself. Helping yourself? Song Qingshu was confused. It's beneficial for the Mongolians, but it might not be beneficial for the Ruyang mansion. These years, I've sensed that the Great Khan has begun to be suspicious of my father. He hasn't done anything because he needs my father's help to govern the Central Plains. But if the most powerful enemy in the Central Plains, the Jin kingdom, collapses, we have to be careful. Zhao Min looked to the north as she spoke. Her eyes were full of worry. It seems that the power struggle in the Mongolians has reached a white-hot stage. Song Qingshu thought to himself. He joked, it seems that you are planning to support the enemy. Don't make it sound so bad. Zhao Min glared at him. It takes wisdom to protect yourself. By the way, are you going or not? Yes, of course. Song Qingshu knew the purpose of his trip to the north. Of course, he couldn't let Song Liao form an alliance so easily. Are you going with me? Zhao Min blushed and turned her face away. Why should I go with you? It's not my business. That's true. Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. Then let's split up. I'll go stop the Southern Song delegation, and you continue to investigate the whereabouts of Murong Jingyue. All right. Zhao Min was straightforward and did not beat around the bush. After parting ways with Zhao Min, Song Qingshu hurried to the small town outside the city. 30 li was not a long journey, but because it was still early, he deliberately slowed down his pace, lest the envoy mission was in high spirits early in the morning. About 2 hours later, he finally arrived at the small town. Liao arranged for the Southern Song delegation to stay at the courier station. Song Qingshu secretly investigated and roughly figured out the size of the delegation. This time, the Southern Song delegation didn't send many people, only about 20. Obviously, they wanted to make the delegation smaller and less likely to be discovered by the enemy. Except for the envoy and the deputy envoy, the rest were all expert. It seemed that the Song court also attached great importance to the security of the delegation. I don't know how to stop the alliance between the two countries. Song Qingshu hid in a tree and was very distressed. In fact, he had a vague answer in his heart, but he didn't want to face it. To destroy the alliance between the two countries, the simplest way was to kill the delegation. A more advanced way was to deliberately let 1 or 2 people go and then put the blame on the Khitans. At that time, even if the Song court let bygones be bygones and sent another delegation, they could buy a few more months to go back and forth. Moreover, they could keep on killing until the 2 countries grew suspicious of each other. Then, they would have succeeded. But Song Qingshu wasn't such a cruel and murderous person, especially for his own interests in the Jin kingdom. He couldn't get over killing the Song people. If Zhao Min were here, she would probably laugh at me for being soft-hearted. Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. Suddenly, his expression changed and he subconsciously hid in the bushes. Not long after, a masked man suddenly rushed in from outside and snuck into the relay station. Why does this person look so familiar? Song Qingshu was puzzled, but he couldn't remember where he had seen him. Just as he was having a headache, he suddenly heard a low cry from inside. Although it stopped abruptly, Song Qingshu could instantly tell that it was the scream of a person before death. This person? Song Qingshu was startled. Just as he was hesitating whether he should go over to take a look, the Khitan warriors at the relay station were clearly alarmed as well. One by one, they rushed over with weapons in their hands while shouting. In just a short while, the man in black had already walked out of the house. Drops of blood slowly seeped out of the long sword in his hand. Song Qingshu's eyes narrowed. He had already recognized the sword. It was the sword of the Shui people. At this time, the group of Khitan warriors found the southern Song diplomatic mission lying in a pool of blood. They were all shocked and shouted as they rushed toward the murderer. There was a flash of blood in the air. The Shui people's sword was like the scythe of the Grim Reaper. It shone with a blood-red but poignant light, reaping one life after another. After about the time for a joss stick to burn, there was no one left alive in the relay station. The Shui people took out a handkerchief to wipe off the blood on the sword. They slowly sheathed the sword and leisurely walked out as if nothing had happened. Song Qingshu quietly went into the room to investigate and found that the Song diplomatic mission had all been killed with one strike. Many of the guards had just pulled out their sabers and their eyes were still filled with shock. It was as if they didn't expect the opponent's sword to be so fast. The Shui people are from the Imperial City Department. Why did he kill the diplomatic mission of the Imperial Court? Song Qingshu was shocked. The development of the plot was beyond his expectations. The more he thought about it, the more suspicious he became. Song Qingshu finally decided to follow and take a look. The Shui people's lightness skill was very good. In a short time, they were already a few miles away from the small town. It was thanks to Song Qingshu's lightness skill that it was difficult to catch up to him. Seeing the back of the Shui people, Song Qingshu slowed down. The Shui people's swordsmanship was already one of the best in the world. If they really fought, it would be impossible to capture him in a short time. Moreover, the Shui people had a tough personality. It was most likely that he wouldn't be able to get anything out of him. It was better to secretly follow behind him and see where he was going and who the mastermind was. The Shui people held a position in the Imperial City Department. Not only was his martial arts powerful, but he was also good at tracking and concealment. It was all thanks to Song Qingshu's current cultivation that he could follow behind him without anyone noticing. Even so, he was almost discovered by the Shui people 2 or 3 times. They actually entered Shangjing? Looking at the city gate in the distance, Song Qingshu was even more surprised. Could it be that the Shui people are colluding with the Liao people? However, he quickly denied this guess. From the perspective of the Liao people, there was no reason for them to kill the Song diplomatic mission. However, the Shui people couldn't possibly be working for the Jin kingdom, could they? As the highest official in the Jin kingdom, Song Qingshu naturally knew that it was impossible. He became even more curious about the Shui people's motive. He followed the Shui people all the way into the city. He walked left and right and soon arrived at a secluded house. Chapter 1502. Song Qingshu quietly followed him in and saw him walk into a room. Soon, his voice was heard. "My task is completed. The rest is up to you." Who is he talking to? Song Qingshu was secretly shocked. He quietly poked through the window and looked in. He saw that other than Shui, there was a man and a woman in the room. The man was almost middle-aged, but he was handsome and elegant. The woman was much younger, charming and extremely alluring. Song Qingshu was greatly shocked because he recognized the identities of these two people. The middle-aged man was the Jia estate's Jiazhen, and the charming and graceful woman was actually the Ningguo estate's eldest young mistress, Qin Keqing. Thinking of the time when he accidentally spent the night with her as Wu Tianda in Lin and City, Song Qingshu couldn't help but feel his heart skip a beat when he recalled the charm of that period. Women are flesh and blood made of water. This phrase was perfectly embodied by Qin Keqing. Her gentleness and her nude were all existences that could make a man go completely crazy. Even though Song Qingshu had experienced many flowers, he still couldn't forget them when he thought about them. Why is she here? Song Qingshu directly ignored Jiazhen, and only the bright and charming figure was left in his mind. At this time, he heard Jiazhen reply, "We have completed half of our task this time. The rest is to investigate the matter of the Mandarin duck saber." Mandarin duck saber? Song Qingshu was startled. He didn't expect to hear these three words again. Because he had read the original work, he always thought that the secret of the Mandarin duck saber being invincible was a big hoax. He didn't expect that there were still so many people in this world who were willing to fall into it. "This is your problem. I am only responsible for killing people," Shui replied coldly, as if he didn't care about anything else. Song Qingshu secretly thought Shui was a member of the Imperial City Department. Why would he be involved with the Jia clan and even kill the envoy of the imperial court? Wasn't this blatant treason? Fortunately, Song Qingshu had stayed in the southern Song dynasty for a period of time and had some understanding of the various forces in Lin. He soon realized that although Shui Yiren was an official of the Imperial City Department, he was also a member of the Shui family. The Jia, Shui, Shi, and Wang families had always been on the same side. This time, the biggest winner of Ma Qifeng's downfall was Jia Shidao's political enemy, Han Xingzhou. Moreover, this northern expedition was organized by Han Xingzhou. If the northern expedition was successful, Han Xingzhou would already be the most powerful person in the imperial court. With his military exploits, wouldn't his prestige be unparalleled? How could Jia Shidao compete with him? Therefore, the entire southern Song dynasty hoped that Han Yuanzhou would succeed in the northern expedition, except for the Jia family. Naturally, they would try their best to sabotage the northern expedition, and the most effective way was to destroy the alliance between the southern Song dynasty and Liao. As long as Liao did not send troops on time, the chances of the Jin kingdom successfully dealing with the Song dynasty's northern expedition would be much higher. Song Qingshu couldn't help but sigh, as the ancients said, "Meat-eaters are despicable." That's true. These people in high positions, their first consideration is not the people of the country, but their own power and interests. It's really despicable. But he also understood that this was human nature, and there was nothing to be despised about. After Shui and the others left, Qin Keqing said to Jiazhen, "It's getting late. I'm going to rest." Jiazhen smiled and said, "There are no outsiders here, so why are you so distant?" As he spoke, he tried to hug her. Song Qingshu frowned and raised his finger unconsciously, ready to teach him a lesson. Although he didn't have much of a relationship with Qin Keqing, she was a woman who had been intimate with him, after all. How could he tolerate her being bullied by another man? Fortunately, Qin Keqing reacted quickly and dodged. Although we are in a foreign country, we still have to avoid arousing suspicion. Jiazhen frowned and was about to take another step forward when he suddenly thought of something. His gaze involuntarily fell between his legs, and his expression instantly became extremely ugly. He thought of the nightmarish encounter he had during this period of time. He didn't know when it started, but he realized that he didn't have any reaction down there when facing beautiful women. At the start, he didn't take it to heart, thinking that it was because he was too addicted to wine and women that his body was deficient, and it would be fine after some recuperation. But who knew that after eating a lot of tonics and abstinence for a long period of time, when he thought it was about time, he found a concubine, but who knew that there was still no reaction at all. Only then did he panic and secretly find a doctor to check on him. Only then did he find out that he had lost that ability. Because Song Qingshu's soul-transferring spell would erase his memory at that time, Jia Zhen didn't know what was going on at all. He only thought that it was because he was greedy for women that it had become useless. For a moment, he was angry and embarrassed, so he secretly looked for all kinds of folk remedies to cure himself while deliberately hiding this matter. Although this task was assigned by Jia Sherdao, he actually planned to go out to relax and see if there would be any improvement. Moreover, the bright and charming daughter-in-law also came with him. After all, every time he touched her body, Jia Zhen would be extremely excited. Previously, there were many people in Lin and City, so it was difficult for him to do anything. Now that he was in a foreign country, he naturally didn't have those concerns. But he never thought that when he just hinted at Qin Keqing, she would directly reject him. That was not all. What made him even more desperate was that even if he touched Qin Keqing, his body still didn't have any reaction. So after Qin Keqing rejected him with righteous words, Jia Zhen didn't have time to say anything, and he just left in a daze. Qin Keqing didn't expect that he would be sent away so easily. For a moment, she couldn't help but be stunned on the spot. Originally, Song Qingshu wanted to go in and ask her something, but on second thought, Qin Keqing only had sex with the fake Wu Tianda for one night. She didn't know him if he went in, so it would be difficult for him to talk to her for free. And if he wasn't careful, it would be easy to alert the enemy. Thinking that he had gotten the information from the previous conversation, Song Qingshu finally took a deep look at the charming young woman in the room and left quietly. When he returned to the yard, Zhao Min looked at him in surprise. "What took you so long?" "It's a long story," Song Qingshu said with a wry smile. "It's not a long story." Zhao Min looked at him with disdain. "I just got the news that all the people in the southern Song dynasty's diplomatic corps have been killed by a mysterious person. I originally thought you were a little indecisive, but I didn't expect you to be so fierce." There was a strange surprise in her tone, as if she was a little appreciative but also a little disappointed. "That person isn't me." Song Qingshu smiled bitterly and roughly told her what had just happened. "Shui Yi's people?" After hearing this answer, for some reason, Zhao Min suddenly relaxed and then continued, "It's probably the power struggle between Jia Sherdao and Han Xingzhou." Her analysis was roughly the same as Song Qingshu's. "I also got another piece of news." Song Qingshu hesitated for a moment and told them what he had heard about the Mandarin duck saber. As he spoke, he commented in a sarcastic tone, "Are these people crazy? How could they believe such nonsense?" "It might not necessarily be nonsense," Zhao Min suddenly said with a serious expression. "What?" Song Qingshu looked at her curiously and waited for her to continue. Zhao Min said, "In fact, I also got similar information recently. It said that the legendary Mandarin duck knife would appear in Shangjing. I didn't take it seriously at first, but now that you mention that the Jia family also came for it, I suddenly realized that it's not that simple." "You also got the information about the Mandarin duck knife?" Song Qingshu asked in surprise. Zhao Min stood up and walked to the window. Looking at the sunset, she said in a distant voice, "I don't know when it started, but there was a rumor in Jianghu. It said that the person who got the secret of the Mandarin duck knife would be invincible in the world. Although there is no beginning and no end, for some reason, everyone believes it. Among them, there are many highly respected seniors in Jianghu. It is said that there was a period of bloodshed for this saber. About 20 years ago, the Mandarin duck saber suddenly disappeared without a trace, and this rumor was gradually forgotten. But recently, for some reason, it has become popular again. Song Qingshu thought that the Mandarin duck knife had probably fallen into the hands of the Shen family 20 years ago. Later, the Shen family had been studying it, but they hadn't been able to crack its secret. In the end, the secret was leaked, Shen Bijuan was kidnapped, and the Shen family was wiped out. What does the Mandarin duck knife look like? Song Qingshu asked curiously. Xiaomin shook her head and said, "No one knows. It is said that all those who have seen the Mandarin duck knife are dead." So mysterious? Song Qingshu looked surprised. He suddenly realized a problem. Jia Sherdao had a lot of talented people working for him. Why did he send Jia Zhen, who was a playboy, and Qin Keqing, who was weak, to take this task? Jia Zhen was a bit lustful, but she was also capable. But what was Qin Keqing doing here? Song Qingshu didn't believe that Jia Sherdao was here to relieve Jia Zhen's boredom. There must be a reason for her to come. Before, Song Qingshu didn't take the Mandarin duck knife seriously, so he didn't think too much about it. Now that he thought that the legend of the Mandarin duck knife was true, he suddenly realized that it was suspicious for Qin Keqing to be here. After talking with Zhao Min and returning to his room, Song Qingshu hesitated for a long time. Finally, he made up his mind. He found some disguise materials in his bag and disguised himself as Wu Tianda. Then, he quietly disappeared into the night sky. After Qin Keqing forced Jia Zhen to leave, she went to bed early, but she couldn't fall asleep. During these days, whenever she closed her eyes, the images of that night would appear in her mind. She was flipped over and her neck was entangled. That man's strong arms, that extremely oppressive and masculine aura. Qin Keqing's face was so red that it was about to ooze blood. She was so embarrassed that she pulled the blanket over her head and rolled around on the bed unconsciously. I was actually subdued like that. Thinking back to the scene of that night, Qin Keqing's long and charming eyes were about to seep out water, but skills in bed are also skills. Just at this moment, she suddenly felt a warm hand caressing her back. Qin Keqing turned pale with fright, thinking that Jia Zhen had snuck in, but when she lifted the blanket and saw the appearance of the man in front of her, she couldn't help but laugh foolishly. "So I fell asleep. I actually dreamed of him again." Song Qingshu was stunned. He didn't expect this reaction from her. When he was about to speak, Qin Keqing suddenly reached out and hugged him. Her abnormally soft body then pressed against him. "It's not easy to dream of you, so let's have a sweet dream. Thank you to King of Meat Pigeon, Prince Loser, Valentine_M, Tuziu Huang Wanying 0, engrave, toss a cup for number, Space Shuttle, Do Wei, Shuyu 534945889, Phenomenal Mars, Lay 2595, Traceless Boy Windy, Dawn, and other enthusiastic readers for their support and monthly votes. Chapter 1503. Song Qingshu was startled. The reason why he disguised himself as Wu Tianda was because it would be easier to gain her trust and then get information from her. Who knew she would have such a reaction? He was not Lu Xiaohui, but this was not the right time. Zhao Min was burning with anxiety at home, so how could he have the nerve to go out to flirt? "Are you dreaming, madam?" Song Qingshu pushed Qin Keqing away and asked gently. A trace of confusion flashed in Qin Keqing's eyes. She suddenly came to her senses and sat up straight, so embarrassed that she wanted to find a hole to hide in. Song Qingshu was worried that he would agitate her, so he did not say anything and just looked at her with a smile. "Why are you here?" After a long while, Qin Keqing barely managed to calm down. Her curiosity got the upper hand. He had already been appointed by the imperial court to be in charge of the military in Sichuan. He should have been in charge by now, so why was he here thousands of miles away? Because I miss Madam, Song Qingshu said with a grin. Annoying, Qin Keqing shrank back and her face suddenly paled. How did you know my identity? She was not stupid. If he could find her here, how could he not know that she was the young mistress of the Jia residence? Song Qingshu reached out and stroked her hair. The young mistress of Ningguo residence is the most beautiful woman in the capital. All the men in Lin and want to get close to you. How could I not know you? Qin Keqing was embarrassed when she heard this. However, there was also a trace of pride. After all, which woman did not want to be praised as beautiful? Even if this kind of beauty would bring misfortune to her, looking at the beard on Song Qingshu's face, Qin Keqing's eyes sparkled. You have a beard one moment and no beard the next. Which face is you? Song Qingshu was startled. Only then did he recall that he had met her with his original appearance when he snuck into the Jia residence at night. Later on, when he had spent the night with her as Wu Tianda, she had recognized the same aura. However, he had forgotten about this because he had been too busy recently. If I had known this, I would not have changed my appearance. Song Qingshu was very depressed. After spending so much time, it turned out that he had done some useless work. Qin Keqing caressed his face. Who exactly are you? She had lived in a rich and powerful family, so how could she not understand how treacherous this level was? Thinking about the mysterious identity of the other party, who might be deliberately trying to get close to her, and then thinking about the series of possible consequences, her heart suddenly turned incomparably cold. It was an accident that we met, so why do you want to get to the bottom of it? It's not good for anyone. Song Qingshu had a delicate relationship with the Jia Sherdao group. If Qin Keqing found out about his identity, even if she kept it a secret for him, he didn't believe that Qin Keqing could resist Jia Sherdao and the others. If his identity was exposed, it would be troublesome. But you clearly know my identity. Qin Keqing bit her lips and looked at him angrily. However, she was naturally charming. Even when she was angry, she was still extremely charming. Just think of me as a heart thief, Song Qingshu replied. Qin Keqing pouted and mumbled, What heart thief? It's obviously a flower thief. Song Qingshu was speechless. He had to explain, Please rest assured, madam. I would never do anything to hurt or threaten you. Qin Keqing looked at him blankly. This familiar yet strange man was full of mystery. She didn't even know his name, but she didn't know why she was willing to believe him at this moment. It was as if there was a strange magic in his voice. Madam, why are you not in Lin and City, but in this bitter cold place? Song Qingshu pretended to ask casually. Although Shangjing was also a big city, it was after all not as livable as Jiangnan. Well, I have a reason to come. Qin Keqing showed a trace of helplessness between her eyebrows. Is it because of the Mandarin duck knife? Song Qingshu suddenly asked. Qin Keqing instantly became alert. How do you know? I guessed. Song Qingshu was a little regretful. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have pretended to be a gentleman at the beginning. He would have just gone with the flow and rekindled their old relationship. It would have been much easier to ask when they were intimate. Although Qin Keqing was weak, she was not stupid. She quickly guessed his intention. She rolled her eyes and came up with a plan. It's too unfair for me to answer your questions alone. How about this, we ask each other questions in turn, and each other must promise not to hide anything. Song Qingshu was dazed and said with a wry smile, All right. Let me ask first. Qin Keqing was afraid of being taken advantage of, so she rushed to say, Are you Wu Tianda or not? Song Qingshu shook his head. No. There was no need to hide this from her. No wonder Wu Tianda was not affected in the last competition in front of the palace. Thinking of that, Jia Sherdao would angrily ask if he had tried his best that night. Qin Keqing couldn't help but blush. At the same time, her question had been answered. Since you're done asking, it's my turn now, Song Qingshu said with a smile. There are so many capable people in the Jia's mansion to investigate the whereabouts of the mandarin duck knife. Why do you, the young mistress, have to do it in person? Because my mother saw the mandarin duck knife. Qin Keqing's words were earth-shattering. What? Your mother saw the mandarin duck knife? Song Qingshu was shocked. The mandarin duck knife was extremely mysterious in Jianghu. It had always been a legend, and no one had ever seen the real thing. Now he didn't even know what the mandarin duck knife looked like. Yes. Qin Keqing nodded. She couldn't help feeling proud of her mother. Song Qingshu was a little suspicious at first, but thinking that her mother was Fang Lei's daughter, Princess Jinji, she might have seen it. What on earth does the mandarin duck knife look like? Qin Keqing shook her head. That's another question for you. Only then did Song Qingshu remember the rules they had agreed on. Then ask. Qin Keqing looked at him with a burning gaze. I want to know what you really look like. Didn't you see it last time? Song Qingshu said with a bitter smile. Who knows if that's your other face? Qin Keqing's tone was a little resentful. Song Qingshu sighed and took off the human skin mask. The reason why I wore a mask is that you're more familiar with this face. Seeing the man in front of her at such a close distance, his eyebrows were like swords, and he was many times more handsome than Wu Tianda. Qin Keqing couldn't help blushing. Although she had a deep impression of the Wu Tianda from that night and could not forget him, she didn't like the full beard. It pricked her. Now that she saw his original appearance, it could be considered as fulfilling one of her wishes. I like this face more. Qin Keqing mumbled quickly. Seeing the other's surprised gaze, she quickly changed the topic. It's your turn to ask. Song Qingshu shrugged his shoulders. Didn't I already ask? Chapter 1504. Song Qingshu secretly nodded his head. The information he got from old Master Shen was similar to this. Why did your mother see the mandarin duck knife? Song Qingshu couldn't help but ask. According to what I know, the mandarin duck knife seems to be in the hands of the Shan family. Princess Jinji used to be in the Ming dynasty. At that time, the Ming dynasty was also considered to be in Jiangnan. Could it be that there was some connection between the two? What Shen family? The mandarin duck knife originally belonged to our Ming dynasty. Qin Keqing said indignantly. Ming dynasty? Song Qingshu's expression changed. He really didn't know about this. He didn't seem to have seen it in the books before. Of course. Qin Keqing's eyes flashed with a strange light as if she was reminiscing and reminiscing. The mandarin duck knife has always been in the hands of the Ming dynasty. Unfortunately, it was lost at some point and only the mandarin duck knife was left. No one in the sect was able to see through the secret of the mandarin duck knife. However, the past sect leaders all remembered the words passed down from generation to generation. The mandarin duck knife hides the secret of invincibility under the heavens. Later on, my maternal grandfather was defeated and the mandarin duck knife was passed down to Prime Minister Zhong, hoping that he could preserve the seed of the Ming dynasty. Later on, Prime Minister Zhong was killed by Kong Yanzhou at Dongting Lake and the mandarin duck knife was taken over by the new sect leader, Yang Yao. After that, Yu Fei pacified Dongting Lake and the mandarin duck knife disappeared. It was from then on that the secret that only the sect leader knew spread to the pugilistic world, causing everyone to know that the mandarin duck knife hides a big secret. So that's how it is. Song Qingshu nodded inwardly. This matched the words of the Shen family's eldest master. The Shen family had obtained the Yang knife after Yang Yao's defeat and death. In order to deceive people, they changed its name to the deer cutter knife. That's right, the secret of the mandarin duck knife's invincibility under the heavens wouldn't be that the two knives have the words benevolent invincible engraved on the hilt? Song Qingshu finally couldn't help but ask the question in his heart. Back then, he had always been brooding over this deceptive ending. How is this possible? Qin Keqing looked at him as if she was looking at an idiot. Back then, I heard my mother mention that the Mandarin duck saber has the 4 words, "The benevolent are invincible." But just these 4 words were passed down from generation to generation by the brilliant sect master of the Ming dynasty? Song Qingshu was surprised. It seemed that because of his arrival, the plot of this world had changed a little due to the butterfly effect. However, it made sense when he thought about it. Is it because of this that they sent you here? Song Qingshu finally understood the crux of the matter. Qin Keqing was one of the few people who knew about the Mandarin duck saber. She was the most suitable person to find the Mandarin duck saber. I think so. Qin Keqing nodded and suddenly said angrily, "You've already asked me so many questions, it's my turn to ask you. Ask away." Song Qingshu was in a good mood after obtaining new information on this trip. Qin Keqing was about to speak when Shui Yi's voice came from outside. "Young Mistress Rong, is there anyone in your room?" "No. There's no one." Qin Keqing was shocked and said unnaturally, "Then why did I hear voices?" Shui Yi said suspiciously. Qin Keqing panicked, Then you might have heard wrongly." "Impossible, there's no problem with my hearing." Shui Yi snorted. Qin Keqing's face turned pale as she looked at Song Qingshu for help. "What should I do?" Song Qingshu pointed outside the window, indicating that he would leave first. Qin Keqing frowned. She still had many questions that she didn't have time to ask him. She didn't want him to leave so quickly. At this moment, Shui Yi's voice sounded again. "Now that we're in danger, we have to be careful. I'll be coming in soon in case you get kidnapped." "But I'm already asleep," Qin Keqing said anxiously. "If you're asleep, then put on your clothes. I'll come in to make sure you're safe before leaving." Shui Yi's voice was as cold as ice. He didn't have any tender feelings for her just because she was a beautiful woman. "What happened?" Jia Zhen's voice came from outside the room again. Clearly, he was alarmed in the room. Hearing Shui Yi voice out his doubts, Jia Zhen also became worried. "Keqing, open the door and let us check." "Wait, let me put on my clothes." Qin Keqing couldn't hold on any longer. She could only move closer to Song Qingshu's ear and quickly say, "You still owe me a few questions." Song Qingshu smiled slightly. "I'll come back to find Madam. See you again if fate wills it." Seeing that the people outside were about to rush in, he didn't stay any longer and left silently through the window. As for how Qin Keqing would explain to her companions later, he wasn't too worried. After all, she was experienced and knowledgeable. Besides, as long as her companions didn't find any evidence, she would be able to deal with it. By the time Song Qingshu returned to the courtyard, Zhao Min had already fallen asleep. Song Qingshu could only return to his room and lie on the bed, tossing and turning, unable to sleep. He secretly regretted in his heart. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have pretended to be Lu Xiaohui. With a beauty like Qin Keqing accompanying him, this long night would definitely be more interesting than today. Of course, this thought only flashed by. Soon, his attention returned to the purpose of this trip. One was to stop Song Liao's peace talks, the second was to find Murong Jingyue, and the third was to stop Liao from marrying Xixia. As for the secret of the Mandarin duck saber, it wasn't that important. As Shui Yi's men killed the Song diplomatic group, the first matter was unexpectedly solved. The investigation of Murong Jingyue was in a deadlock because all the clues were cut off. Yelu Nanxian also didn't cooperate with the escape of the marriage. It seemed that the marriage was inevitable. The more Song Qingshu thought about it, the more annoyed he became. He didn't fall asleep until the latter half of the night. Early the next morning, Song Qingshu was easily awakened by the noise outside his room. When he went out, he found Zhao Min practicing her swordsmanship in the courtyard. Originally, he was a little angry when he was woken up, but when he saw the figure dancing gracefully among the flowers, that soft and slender waist, the resentment that Song Qingshu had accumulated last night instantly disappeared without a trace. Like a light cloud covering the moon, like snow drifting in the wind. Princess swordsmanship is truly excellent. Song Qingshu couldn't help but applaud. Zhao Min sheathed her sword. Because of the exercise, she was lightly gasping for breath. Her fair face had a slight blush. The Prince of Qi's martial arts are matchless. How could this little girl's superficial swordsmanship be of any importance? Is there a need to say such false praise? In addition, you use the words that Chen Siwang used to say to sister-in-law. It is neither auspicious nor sincere. Song Qingshu was startled. With a wry smile, he asked, "Why does Princess seem to have eaten gunpowder this morning? Who provoked you?" Zhao Min rolled her eyes at him, not answering his question. Instead, she said, "If you compare me to Lady Zhen, you should know that Chow Pai loved her so much at the beginning. In the end, he grew old and faded, dying so miserably. I can only say that you men are all fickle and fickle." Song Qingshu instantly broke out in a waterfall of sweat. What was going on? He didn't know how he had provoked her. He unconsciously replied, "Chow Pai gave Zhenmi the cold shoulder, but it wasn't because she grew old and faded." "Then why?" Zhao Min was suddenly startled, looking at him curiously. Song Qingshu often chatted with her like this on their journey. Now that he saw that she was in a bad mood, he didn't dare to be careless. He tried to divert her attention by showing off. The cause of this incident goes back to the 21st year of Jian. When Cao Cao went south to conquer Sun Quan, his wife Lady Bian, Chow Pai, and concubine Zhen's son and daughter were with him. Cao Cao left Cao Ji to guard Yi City and said, "I used to be the Duanqiu magistrate, 23 years old. Thinking about what I have done now, I have no regret. You are already 23 years old, so I won't force you." What a strange thing to say. What's so strange about that? At that time, Cao Cao preferred Cao Ji and intended to make him the crown prince. It's normal for him to reveal his true feelings in his words. Zhao Min frowned. What are you trying to say by rambling on so much? What I want to say is that Lady Zhen was also left in Yi City at that time. Her father-in-law, mother-in-law, husband, and even children weren't with her. They didn't come back until the 9th month of the next year. When they came back, Madame Bian was surprised to find that Lady Zhen was radiant. It was very strange. There were even records of it in the history books. Song Qingshu answered. Are you trying to say that something happened between Zhen Mi and Chen Siwang in the past year that made Chow Pai bear a grudge against them? Zhao Min snorted lightly. It's just a rumor. If something really happened, with Chow Pai's narrow-mindedness, how could Chow Ji still be alive? You're talking about the situation where Chow Pai was kept in the dark. What if Chow Pai knew it from the beginning, or even instructed his wife to get close to Chow Ji? Song Qingshu said with a faint smile. Zhao Min frowned. What nonsense are you talking about? Has Chow Pai lost his mind? Under normal circumstances, of course, a man wouldn't allow his wife to seduce another man. But what if there's a sufficient motive? Song Qingshu paused. For example, the position of crown prince? Zhao Min's eyes lit up. This time, she didn't refute him. Instead, she looked thoughtful. Song Qingshu continued, Your Highness, do you know when Cao Ji lost his position as crown prince? The most thorough time should be when Cao Ren was surrounded by Guan Yu. Cao Cao decided to send Cao Ji to rescue him, but in the end, Cao Ji got drunk at Chow Pai's place. Zhao Min paused. But speaking of the first time, he fell out of favor. It should be the rebellion in Shudu in the 23rd year of Jian. That's right. Cao Ji was guarding the rear, but he neglected his duties and didn't notice the rebellion at all. It was then that Cao Cao became disappointed in him. Song Qingshu changed the topic. But Cao Ji is not a mediocre person. He also has a lot of capable people under him. If he didn't notice the rebellion, someone would have to talk about love to divert his attention. Song Qingshu smiled mysteriously. You mean Zhenmi? Zhao Min's expression changed. Although she was Mongolian, she was familiar with the Han culture. Being in the royal family, History was a compulsory course, so she quickly began to recall. The mastermind of that rebellion was indeed mainly from Hebei, Zhenmi's hometown. The scale of the rebellion was very small and it was impossible to succeed. But the aftermath had a great impact and indirectly caused Qiao Ji to fall out of favor, Song Qinshu then said. Qiao Pai used his wife to help him seize the position of crown prince. Naturally, he kept this a secret. Every time he saw Zhenmi, he couldn't help but think of what happened in the past. Naturally, he couldn't help but feel disgusted. That's why he gradually neglected her. It wasn't because she was old and faded. One must know that Zhenmi was only in her 30s when she died. Even Chen Yuanyuan was still beautiful. As the empress, how could she be bad at taking care of herself? Although you have a lot of things, you do have great talent. I've never thought about it from this angle. Zhao Min couldn't help sighing. Song Qinshu secretly felt lucky. He was just an ordinary person. It was just that he had more knowledge than the people in this world by a few hundred years. What he said just now was just a thought that came from reading an article by Prince Ma in his previous life. So, men are not the kind of people who are superficial based on appearance. Before Song Qinshu could finish, Zhao Min glared at him fiercely. Using your wife to achieve your goal is despicable and shameless. Being unfaithful and fickle after it's done is even more disgusting. You men are really bastards. Song Qinshu wanted to slap himself. He didn't expect to come back to the same point after beating around the bush. Not all men are like this. For example, I'm definitely not. Chapter 1505. No wonder you were inexplicably angry early in the morning. Song Qinshu's face had an additional trace of an inexplicable smile. Is it very funny? Looking at his mischievous smile, Zhao Min only felt a nefarious fire rising from her chest and abdomen. Song Qinshu saw that the situation was not right and hurriedly said, I didn't go out to fool around last night. I came back very early. Zhao Min snorted and did not say anything else. She directly moved to his side and the two faces were almost touching. Looking at her delicate skin at such a close distance, Song Qinshu sighed in his heart. Zhao Min grew up in Mongolia, but her skin was even fairer and more delicate than the girls in Jiangnan. She was indeed an existence that was blessed by the heavens. At such a close distance, Song Qinshu could even smell the fragrance on her hair. His heart couldn't help but start thumping. It was as if he had become an innocent little virgin man again. What does she mean? Does she want to kiss me? But that's not like her character. Should I take the initiative? Just as Song Qinshu was worrying about his gains and losses, Zhao Min wrinkled her nose and sniffed downwards. When she smelled his left chest and sleeve, she couldn't help but sneer. There's still the fragrance of another woman on your body. Don't tell me you went to compete with other girls last night. Instantly sweating like a waterfall, Song Qinshu then realized that he had thought wrongly. As for the fragrance on his body, it was probably left behind when he hugged Qin Keqing yesterday. Zhao Min straightened her body and said indifferently, she even used the rouge and face powder from Trian's place. It seems like that woman came from a wealthy family. Sometimes I can't help but sigh that the taste of the woman you found is quite good. Song Qinshu naturally knew that she wasn't praising him, and couldn't help but smile bitterly. Zhao Min actually managed to guess Qin Keqing's identity so accurately with such a few clues. Such an intelligent woman really made people love and hate her. Usually, she would definitely be a great talent, but if he really married her, he wouldn't even be able to hide it from her. I'm really wronged. Yesterday, I thought that you were still waiting for me, so I came back without doing anything. Who knew that when I came back, you were already asleep? Song Qinshu shrugged and said helplessly. Zhao Min blushed and turned her face away unnaturally. Who's waiting for you? Looking at her blushing face, Song Qinshu secretly sighed. If she was placed in the 2D world of his future life, she would definitely be a tsundere. Princess. At this moment, Zhao Min's subordinate ran in from afar. He wanted to say something, but when he saw Song Qingshu next to him, he instantly shut his mouth. Zhao Min frowned. If you have something to say, just say it. He's not an outsider. Song Qingshu's expression changed, but he didn't say anything. However, he couldn't help but feel a trace of warmth in his heart. The subordinate revealed a surprised expression, and then replied, "The latest news, the Xixia envoy has entered Prince Wei's mansion." "Yelu Isin?" Zhao Min murmured to herself. Now that he's like the sun in the sky in the imperial court, and he's also the father of Princess Qing, and it's reasonable for the Xixia envoy to visit him. Continue to send people to monitor him, and be careful not to alert the enemy. Yes. The subordinate saluted and quietly left. Zhao Min didn't take it too seriously, but Song Qingshu secretly frowned. The thought that Yelu Nanxian was about to marry the crown prince of Xixia made him extremely unhappy. This kind of unhappiness had nothing to do with love, but was determined by something engraved in the depths of male genes. "I'll go out for a while," Song Qingshu said in a low voice. Since he had bumped into them this time, he had to destroy the marriage between the two countries no matter what. "Okay." Zhao Min replied indifferently. Song Qingshu hurriedly took 2 steps outside, but suddenly stopped and looked back at Zhao Min with a faint smile. "I almost fell into the princess's trap." The corners of Zhao Min's mouth curled up slightly. "What plan do I have?" "It's mainly because you agreed too readily and revealed a flaw." Song Qingshu snorted. "You obviously want to know what Xixia and Liao are discussing, but Prince Wei's mansion is heavily guarded, and your subordinates can't go in to investigate at all. So you turned your attention to me and deliberately pretended to be indifferent. At the same time, you intentionally or unintentionally mentioned Yelu Nanxian's marriage to provoke me. You knew that with my temperament, I would definitely take the initiative to investigate." Zhao Min sighed. "Sometimes I still feel more relaxed around Zhang Wuji. When I'm with you, I always feel like I'm with an old fox." Now that the relationship between the two was extraordinary, mentioning Zhang Wuji was as normal as mentioning an ordinary person, and she wasn't afraid of breaking any taboo topics. Song Qingshu snorted with a straight face. "If I'm an old fox, then you're a 1,000-year-old fox spirit." Zhao Min smiled brightly. She was obviously very satisfied with this title. "Since you've seen through my evil plan, are you going to go or not?" "Of course." Song Qingshu raised his voice, but in the end, he still gave up. "Yes, I'm going." Overt schemes made people feel helpless. You obviously knew everything, but you still went in headfirst. Song Qingshu had been to Prince Wei's mansion before, so this time he could be considered to be familiar with the place. However, he still needed to be careful when sneaking in broad daylight. Of course, it was impossible for other masters of Jianghu to sneak into the heavily guarded Prince Wei's mansion, no matter how careful they were. Once he entered Prince Wei's mansion, Song Qingshu quickly found the place where Yelu Isin was meeting the people from Western Xia from the direction where the servants were serving tea. He quietly looked inside from the window. The person sitting in the middle was naturally Yelu Isin. There were also a few officials he did not know sitting in the room. Some of them were from Liao, and some were from Western Xia. They must be Yelu Isin's trusted subordinates and envoys from Western Xia. But what surprised him was that there were a few old acquaintances in the room. There was a woman in white with a thin veil over her face sitting at the head of the table. Even if her face was covered, he could still see her watery eyes and the faintly discernible snow-white skin. With her graceful and alluring figure, he could tell at first glance that she was a great beauty. Aunt Meng. After Song Qingshu got over his initial shock, he soon felt relieved. Li Qinglu was in charge of Class 1 Hall, and she was even in Linen City when she investigated the Southern Song dynasty. Right now, it was only natural for her to come to Shangjing for the sake of the marriage between Western Xia and Liao. You want to take care of my wife on behalf of your brother? This time, I will definitely make you return in failure. Song Qingshu naturally understood the goal of her trip, and he became even more irritated. As for the people beside her, they were all familiar faces. They were the four great villains, led by Duan Yanqing. Western Xia is indeed the weakest among all the countries. Among its subordinates, only Duan Yanqing can be considered as a first-class player in the world of martial artists. The others are just too weak. Song Qingshu thought about it in secret, but he soon remembered that the strongest player in Western Xia was none other than Li Qiushui, who hid in the depths of the palace. Li Qinglu, who was trained by Song Qingshu, could handle the situation. The people inside were talking about some details of the wedding. While Song Qingshu was listening to them, a person suddenly burst in from the outside, wailing like a ghost and howling like a wolf. "Dad, you have to help me!" "What the hell?" Song Qingshu fixed his eyes on the man and saw that he was about 20 years old. He was quite handsome, but his steps were weak and there was a faint bluish-black color between his eyebrows. It was obvious that he had been hollowed out by wine and women, but the most striking thing about him was that his clothes were tattered and his face was bruised. It was obvious that he had been beaten up. "Father, you have to help me." The man hugged Yelu Isen's leg and howled. The room was still in a heated discussion, but it instantly quieted down. Outside the window, Song Qingshu's mouth twitched. He thought, is this Nanshin's brother Yelu Sui? He had heard from Zhao Min that Yelu Isen had a son and a daughter. The daughter was naturally Yelu Nanxian, and the son was Yelu Sui. It was said that he was a particularly good-for-nothing, always leading eagles and dogs, and lingering in brothels. But in Song Qingshu's view, this was a common problem of good-for-nothing sons. He didn't know that he was so strange. Yelu Isen was obviously a little embarrassed. He quietly looked at the Western Xia people's faces and said angrily, "Bastard, don't you see where you are? I have guests here." Yelu Sui also realized that there were other people in the room. He didn't think much of it when he saw the others, but when his eyes fell on Li Qinglu, he suddenly showed a look of amazement. His whole body froze, his mouth wide open, and he couldn't say a word. Li Qinglu didn't get angry. She smiled and said, "Prince Wei, don't be angry. Your son's appearance is obviously caused by a beating. Let's hear what happened first." "I've made a fool of myself in front of the princess." Yelu Isen's face became a little better. He kicked his son and said, "Stand up and talk properly." Yelu Sui finally woke up from his shock. With this reminder, the painful experience he had just experienced still got the upper hand. He hurriedly said, "Father, it's like this. Today I was walking on the street with some people, and I suddenly met a woman. Although she looked a bit older than me, and she had her hair combed into a woman's bun, she was truly a stunning beauty. That face, that figure, none of your concubines could compare to her. Perhaps only this princess could compare to her." "Shut up, get to the point." Yelu Isen hurriedly interrupted him, his face gloomy. The Xixia people all had strange expressions on their faces. Even Li Qinglu's smile froze on her face. Song Qingshu, who was outside the window, almost laughed out loud. He found that he was starting to like this funny brother-in-law. He had already acknowledged Yelu Nanxian as his woman, so naturally, he also regarded Yelu Sui as his brother-in-law. Yelu Sui was also frightened by his father and didn't dare to gossip anymore. He hurriedly said, "Then I went up to make friends with her. Who knew that she didn't give me any face and beat me up?" Hearing this, everyone in the room snorted. Even if they didn't see it with their own eyes, they could imagine what the scene was like. Yelu Sui must have seen that the woman was beautiful and went up to flirt with her. He didn't expect that the beautiful woman was actually a martial arts master. Not only did he not get taken advantage of, but he was also beaten up. Useless things, a group of men like you were beaten up by a woman? Yelu Isen naturally knew that every time his son went out, he would bring a group of servants and thugs with him. Yelu Sui immediately became anxious. If she didn't have a precious sword in her hand that could cut through iron like mud, how could we not be able to beat her? Chapter 1506. Although Li Qinglu quickly covered it up, how could that momentary reaction be hidden from Song Qinshu, who had been observing the situation in the room? Li Qinglu is in charge of the first-class hall of Xixia, and her martial arts is one of the best of the younger generation. What could make her lose her composure like that? Song Qinshu said thoughtfully, "A precious sword that can cut through iron like mud. You guys can't even beat a woman, and you still have the face to blame the weapon?" Yelu Isin said with a look of exasperation. "Get out." Li Qinglu advised at the right time, "Prince Wei, you don't have to blame your son. There are many capable people in Jianghu, and they have weapons. You can't blame him for being at a disadvantage." Hearing her speak up for him, Yelu Sui immediately cast a grateful look at her, thinking that this princess of Xixia was not only beautiful, but also considerate. "Well, for the sake of Princess Yinchuan, I'll spare you this time. Get out of here, don't delay us from talking business." Yelu Isin glared at his son. Yelu Sui had no choice but to walk out resentfully. When he came out, he kept muttering, "Recently, father has become more and more strict. Is it because he can't stand up for me in front of outsiders?" At this time, Li Qinglu, who was in the room, secretly gave a look. One of her subordinates understood and quietly followed her out. None of this escaped Song Qinshu's eyes. He hesitated for a moment. Seeing that he couldn't hear any valuable information here, he quietly followed. He saw that the Xixia man quietly caught up with Yelu Sui and indirectly asked about the woman he had met before. Because Li Qinglu had helped him just now, Yelu Sui also had a good impression of the Xixia man. Soon, his emotions were aroused, and he described what had happened before in more detail. Song Qinshu secretly frowned, wondering why Li Qinglu was so concerned about this matter. Could it be that she wanted to stand up for Yelu Sui and use this to please Yelu Isin? But he quickly denied this speculation. After all, she was a dignified princess of a country, and it would be too low of a status to help a playboy bully others to please others. Just as he was feeling puzzled, a noise came from the hall. Song Qinshu hurriedly dodged to the side. It turned out that the Xixia people had come out. In order to show their friendship, Yelu Isin even sent them to the door. Song Qinshu hesitated for a while and finally decided to quietly follow Li Qinglu and the others to see what she was up to. After all, everything that happened before was a little abnormal. At this time, on the outskirts of Shangjing, a beautiful young woman wearing an aqua blue fur coat suddenly stopped in her tracks. "Your Excellency has followed me for so long, shouldn't you show yourself?" Her voice was crisp and soft. It was obvious that she was a very gentle woman. "Little girl, your martial arts are really good. You can actually discover my whereabouts." After a burst of laughter, a black-clothed man jumped down from a nearby tree. Although it was daytime, he was still covered with a black cloth. However, from the white hair that could be seen, it could be seen that he was no longer young. The young woman's beautiful face flashed a trace of red. How old was her child? Why did he call her little girl? But she also understood that this black-clothed man was probably not young, so calling her little girl was not wrong. "May I know why Senior is following me all the way?" The black-clothed man smiled. "Nothing else. I just want to borrow the sword that Madam is carrying to have a look." As he said this, he pointed to the sword on her back. The young woman's expression changed slightly. She replied in a neither servile nor overbearing manner, "This is a relic of my late husband. It is not convenient to share it with others. Please forgive me, Senior." How could she not see that the other party came for this sword? As for borrowing the sword to have a look, it was just a formality. "That's a pity." The black-clothed man sighed. Before he finished speaking, his figure moved. His whole body was like a black rock, blotting out the sky and covering the earth as he pounced on the young woman. The young woman was clearly on guard. With a flick of her wrist, a silver bell and golden chain shot towards the black-clothed man from an inconceivable angle. The black-clothed man's heart trembled, and he could only change direction midway to avoid the attack. The young woman didn't stop. The silver bell and golden chain in her hand moved like a flood dragon in the clouds. The black-clothed man cried out in alarm, "Little girl, your martial arts have actually reached such a level. It is truly amazing." The young woman didn't feel the slightest bit happy. She had already pushed the chain to its limit, but it was still unable to do anything to the black-clothed man. It was clear that the black-clothed man's martial arts were far superior to hers. Sure enough, during this time, the black-robed man had already figured out her attack patterns. His figure suddenly flickered, causing the young woman's attacks to hit nothing but air. In just a few breaths of time, he was already within 3 feet of her. At such a close distance, the chain was useless. The young woman didn't panic and directly pulled out the long saber on her back. The edge of the saber was only half a foot away, but a cold azure light shot out. When the saber was unsheathed, the cold light flickered. Even with the black-clothed man's martial arts, he didn't dare to face it head-on. With a strange cry, he retreated 10 feet away. Seeing the cold light on the saber, the black-clothed man sighed in praise. "It really is a legendary saber." The young woman frowned. Although her late husband's saber was a rare and good saber, its reputation in Jianghu was far inferior to the dragon saber. She didn't know why this man was so interested in this saber. The black-clothed man wasn't in a hurry to attack. Instead, he asked, "Little girl, have you heard of the story of treasuring a jade ring won in trouble?" "Of course I have." The young woman lightly snorted. At the same time, she was on guard. The black-clothed man in front of her was extremely skilled. If it was her in the past, she would have long since been no match for him. It was only thanks to the supreme technique that she was able to endure for so long. A charming blush suddenly appeared on the young woman's beautiful face as she recalled the process of cultivating this divine art. Even though the black-clothed man was quite old, he couldn't help but be a bit absent-minded, truly a peerless beauty. However, he was still a seasoned veteran. He quickly remembered the purpose of his trip and said, "This saber isn't something you can have. Forcefully keeping it will only bring you disaster." The young woman sneered, "I can't have it, but you can?" The black-clothed man stood with his hands clasped behind his back, proudly saying, "This old man naturally has the ability to protect this saber." The young woman angrily said, "How can I give my late husband's relic to others? If you have the ability, then come and take it yourself." The black-clothed man's eyes turned cold. "Then this old man will have to offend you." He attacked again. His speed and palm wind were twice as fast as before. At first, the young woman was able to rely on the saber in her hand to barely hold on. However, after 20 moves, her attacks began to slow down, as if she would be hit at any moment. After a few more moves, the black-clothed man finally found an opening and pressed his palm on the saber. The young woman felt as if she had been struck by lightning, and her entire body fell to the ground. This time, the black-clothed man didn't give her a chance to catch her breath. He directly attacked in an attempt to snatch the saber away. At this time, the blood in the young woman's body was surging, and it would take at least 3 breaths for her to recover her combat strength. How could she resist at this point? Just as the black-clothed man was about to succeed, a shout suddenly came from not far away. The black-clothed man saw a golden object shooting toward him from the corner of his eyes. He didn't dare to be careless and could only give up on attacking. He flipped over and snatched the saber away. Looking at the golden dart stuck in a nearby tree, his expression changed for a moment. "Golden snake drill. Sister Icy Snow, are you all right?" At this moment, a girl with delicate eyebrows and eyes like a phoenix went over to support the young woman. Although she also had her hair combed into a young woman's bun, her skin was fair and rosy, even fairer than a young girl's, tender and pink. Ching, it's you? The young woman was surprised and overjoyed. She had already adjusted the vital energy in her body, but what made her even happier was that she met an acquaintance. It turned out that this young woman was Hu Yidao's widow, Icy Snow. After she parted ways with Song Qinshu, she had been secretly looking for clues about her husband's murderer, Murong Jingyue. Gradually, she came to Shangjing City. Who knew that she would run into a playboy as soon as she entered the city? After teaching him a lesson, she recalled that the servants claimed that he was Prince Wei's son and knew that Yelu Isin was extremely powerful. To avoid trouble, she planned to leave the city and lie low. Who knew that not long after she left the city, she would be pestered by this mysterious black-clothed man. As for the other woman with rosy skin, she was naturally Xia Qingqing. Initially, she wanted to take revenge on Dongfang Muxue for hugging Yuan Qingji. However, she learned from Dongfang Muxue that Yuan Qingji might not be dead. Surprised and overjoyed, she returned to Yanjing City with Dongfang Muxue. While helping Dongfang Muxue with political affairs, she began to investigate Yuan Qingji. In the end, she found out that someone had seen someone similar to Yuan Qingji in Shangjing City. Thus, she set off for this place. Along the way, she was thinking about what Dongfang Muxue said to her. So what if she found Yuan Qingji? Could she go back to the past and start all over again with him? Xia Qingqing was also very confused. Countless nights, she asked herself, if Yuan Qingji was still alive, who would she choose between him and Song Qinshu? Although her rationality told her that it would be Madame Yuan, she realized that Song Qinshu had completely occupied her heart, even though he was a philanderer and had a glib tongue. I'm really a bad woman. Even though she had made up her mind, she still decided to make a trip to Shangjing City to confirm Yuan Qingji's whereabouts and completely end her past. Just as she was worrying about her gains and losses, she suddenly heard the sound of fighting not far away. She ran over and saw that one of them was Icy Snow. When she first got together with Song Qinshu, both of them had met. Although she knew that she was Hu Yidao's widow, she also knew about the relationship between her and Song Qinshu. It was precisely because both of them were widows that they sympathized with each other. Although both of them were now considered love rivals to a certain extent, they didn't have any intention of fighting over a man's affection. Instead, they treated each other as bosom friends. Seeing that Icy Snow was in danger, how could Xia Qingqing just stand by and watch? She immediately shot out a few golden snake awls to save her. Golden snake sword. Seeing the shining golden sword in Xia Qingqing's hand, the man in black instantly hesitated. He wasn't afraid of the newcomer Xia Qingqing. Although her martial arts weren't weak, both of them were no match for him. What he was afraid of was the man behind Xia Qingqing, the Golden Snake King, Song Qinshu. Although Song Qinshu and Xia Qingqing had never made their relationship public, everyone was not blind and had more or less guessed it. There were always some rumors. However, because Song Qinshu's performance in recent years was too strong, no one felt that there was anything wrong with it. On the contrary, they felt that it was natural for Xia Qingqing to be with him. After all, a beauty matched with a hero. Since you recognize it's the Golden Snake Sword, do you still want to continue fighting? Xia Qingqing was also afraid of this man's martial arts. She was afraid that he would be forced into a life-and-death struggle. Chapter 1507. Icy Snow frowned. I've already said that this is my late husband's legacy. How can I give it to you? In order to avenge her husband, she had been traveling all over the country to search for Murong Jingyue. Not long ago, when she passed by Tsangzhou, she paid her respects to Hu Yidao and deliberately dug out the icy moon saber buried in her husband's grave. She planned to use this saber to kill her enemy and avenge her husband. Moreover, the Hu family's saber technique would be even more powerful when executed with this saber. Hu Fei was also growing up, so how could she give this saber to someone else in the future? Then don't blame me. The man in black sneered. He had already made up his mind. As the saying goes, the sky is high and the emperor is far away. No matter how high Song Qingshu's martial arts were, it was impossible for him to know what happened thousands of miles away. At most, he would kill them to silence them. The man in black's figure flashed and instantly attacked the two women. Icy Snow and Xia Qingqing were already prepared. They raised their sabers and swords and faced him. Icy Snow had already learned ancient Tomb Sect's supreme martial art, Jade Maiden Heart Sutra, and also learned a part of Nine Yin Sutra. Xia Qingqing had been by Song Qingshu's side for a long time and received several pointers from him. Her martial arts improved even more, and the two women were already among the top experts in the world. If it weren't for the fact that the man in black's martial arts were close to the 5 ultimate skills, they would have long defeated him if they worked together. The more the man in black fought, the more alarmed he became. One's saber technique was upright and imposing, while the other's sword technique was abnormally strange. When the two of them worked together, they learned from each other's strengths to make up for each other's weaknesses. Their might was more than doubled. Although his martial arts were far higher than any of them, he would need at least hundreds of moves to win against them when they worked together. At that moment, the man in black suddenly knitted his brows. He jumped out of the battle circle and stopped attacking. Instead, he looked to the west. Icy Snow and Xia Qingqing stood back to back and watched in that direction with rapt attention. They saw a slim girl with a veil over her face leading a group of fierce-looking people on horseback. They were obviously the people from Class 1 Hall led by Li Qinglu. Huh! Seeing that mysterious man in black, Li Qinglu couldn't help but frown. She learned about Icy Snow's whereabouts from Yelu Sui, then she went all the way to the east side of the city. Who would have thought that there would be another expert here? At this time, the black-robed man was also bewildered. He stood in the same place with his hands clasped behind his back. He didn't attack anymore. Although he was proud of his high martial arts skills, he wasn't stupid enough to be the fisherman who benefited from the fight between the sandpiper and the clam. He had made up his mind not to attack until he had figured out the origin of this group of Xixia people. Song Qingshu, who was far behind Li Qinglu, also recognized Icy Snow and Xia Qingqing. He couldn't help but be surprised and overjoyed, especially Icy Snow. It had probably been more than a year since they last met. However, he was not in a hurry to greet them. This time, he had come to Shangjing City in secret. Now that there were too many people, it was not convenient for him to show himself. Let's see what the Xixia people are up to first. When he thought that Li Qinglu and the others were obviously here for Icy Snow, Song Qingshu became even more puzzled. You guys can continue, we are just passing by. After the initial shock, Li Qinglu smiled sweetly and pretended to leave. Humph! Whether it was the black-robed man or Icy Snow, no one believed her nonsense. Seeing that she couldn't fool the other party, Li Qinglu stopped and said to the black-robed man, "May I know why you are here?" She could tell that the black-robed man was very strong, so it was best not to provoke him. "May I know why you are here?" the black-robed man asked in a low, muffled voice. Li Qinglu smiled and said, "This lady has just bullied a friend of mine. My friend is magnanimous and forgave her, but I have to bring her back to apologize to my friend." She recognized Icy Snow's hairstyle and knew that she was married. Moreover, she couldn't call her little girl like the black-robed old man because of their age. Song Qingshu curled his lips. What magnanimous! It was obvious that Yelu Sui couldn't defeat Icy Snow. As for asking her to apologize, it was just an excuse. Only a ghost would believe it. But why does Li Qinglu insist on looking for Icy Snow? Song Qingshu pondered and said nothing. The black-robed man snorted coldly. "It seems that we are here for the same purpose. Why are you hiding?" He naturally didn't believe Li Qinglu's nonsense. Li Qinglu smiled sweetly and didn't feel offended. "First come, first serve. Since you came first, then you should go first." She could tell that both parties were fighting just now, so she obviously didn't want to get involved. The black-robed man sneered. I'm old and need to rest. Let you young people do it. Xia Qingqing was furious when she heard the two of them treating them like lambs waiting to be slaughtered. However, although she was angry, she wasn't stupid. She knew that both parties were experts in martial arts, so she couldn't use force. She could only use her wits. We are from the Golden Snake Camp, and this is the wife of the Golden Snake King. If you dare to offend her, the Golden Snake Camp won't forgive you. On the side, Icy Snow was embarrassed. She thought, I'm nominally the widow of Big Brother who. Why did you say that I'm Song Qingshu's? Xia Qingqing stuck out her tongue. She was too embarrassed to say that she was related to Song Qingshu, so she had to push Icy Snow out. Good sister, I'll come to you to ask for forgiveness later. Xia Qingqing hurriedly whispered in Icy Snow's ear. Icy Snow bit her lips, but she couldn't get angry at her. She knew that this was the wisest course of action. Now, she could only hope that Song Qingshu's name could intimidate the other party. Song Qingshu, who was hiding in the dark, felt as satisfied as if he had eaten a ginseng fruit. He thought, Qingqing is a good girl. She knows how to use her man's name at the critical moment. The black-robed man's eyes flickered. Previously, he decided to take action because he was confident that he could completely subdue the two women and that the news wouldn't spread. However, with such a large group of people from Western Xia present, he knew that he didn't have the ability to deal with all of them. Therefore, he decided to temporarily retreat. Golden Snake King? Is he the newly conferred Prince of Qi? Li Qinglu suddenly snorted coldly. She recalled the scene where she was played by the opposite party outside Lin and City. Even though her face was covered, one could still see a layer of redness on her cheeks. It was unknown whether it was because of shame or anger. He's just a king of a mountain. Why would my Western Xia country be afraid of him? Li Qinglu snorted coldly. Guards, capture these two women for me. She had always looked calm and collected. However, she became impatient the moment she heard Song Qingshu's name. So, she directly ordered them to take action. Unexpectedly, Duan Yanqing and the others looked at each other. They didn't move. Instead, they stepped forward and whispered to her, Princess, the man surnamed Song isn't someone to be trifled with. Why don't we just let it go? The four evildoers had fought with Song Qingshu several times. In the beginning, they were still able to exchange blows with each other. But later on, the opposite party had left them in the dust. Now, they couldn't even see Song Qingshu's taillight. So, they naturally couldn't bring themselves to oppose him anymore. What are you afraid of? Li Qinglu said angrily. The Western Xia country and the Golden Snake Camp are thousands of miles apart. There are also several countries in between. Are you afraid that he will lead his troops to attack us? Beside her, Yi Ernyang said with a wry smile, I'm not afraid of him leading his troops. But his martial arts are superb. What if he comes to Western Xia alone to take revenge? Li Qinglu snorted coldly. Then he will walk right into the trap. Not to mention the hundreds of thousands of soldiers of Western Xia, there are also countless masters of Class 1 Hall. Moreover, there is also the matchless old princess. Why should we be afraid of him? Beside her, Yunzhong he opened his mouth but didn't say anything. He cursed in his heart. Although the old princess's martial arts are high, she may not be a match for the man surnamed Song. Of course, the old princess was omnipotent in the eyes of the Western Xia people. So, he didn't dare to say this in public. If you don't take action, do you want me to do it myself? Li Qinglu finally couldn't hold back. There was a hint of coldness in her tone. Duan Yanqing and the others looked at each other. After all, they worked for Class 1 Hall. They had no choice but to take action against the two women. In the dark, Song Qingshu frowned. He picked up a few stones and was ready to help secretly. Suddenly, he thought of something and looked back not far away. Everyone in the field clearly sensed that something was amiss. They all turned around and heard the hurried sound of hooves. A group of Khitan cavalrymen rushed over and surrounded them in the field in a few breaths' time. The leader of the cavalry was a handsome young knight. He had a scholarly air about him, and he didn't look like a general who had fought on the battlefield. Instead, he looked more like an elegant and modest gentleman. Song Qingshu had already recognized that the leader of the cavalry was Yelu Qi. He recalled the conversation between Yelu Isin and Xiao Shimu. It seemed that Yelu Qi had been promoted to be the commander of all the palaces. At such a young age, he was in charge of the emperor's personal army. His future was really limitless. "General, what do you mean?" Li Qinglu hadn't seen Yelu Qi before, but she recognized that they were Liao's cavalry. Therefore, she didn't panic at all. "Who are you?" Yelu Qi asked with a frown when he saw the strange clothes of this group of people. A member of Class 1 Hall came forward and answered, "We are the envoys of Western Xia. This is Princess Yinchuan." "Western Xia's envoys?" Yelu Qi frowned and said, "According to what I know, the Western Xia envoys should be in the insignia courtyard. Why are they here?" Li Qinglu and the others were speechless. They had deliberately returned to the insignia courtyard and then sneaked out to capture icy snow. They didn't expect so many things to happen. Yelu Qi continued to observe. He was shocked when he saw the man in black. Judging from his attire, he could tell that he wasn't a good person. When he saw Xia Qingqing and Yinchuan, he couldn't help but be surprised. "Madame Yuan." "Young Master Yelu." Xia Qingqing also returned the greeting. Yelu Qi and Xiao Feng had helped the Golden Snake Battalion to resist the Manchurian Qing's encirclement. At that time, they had interacted with each other and naturally recognized each other. Yelu Qi wanted to say something, but after some hesitation, he waved his hand and said, "Guards, take these people back." Li Qinglu and the others were immediately furious. "We are the Western Xia envoys. How dare you arrest us? Aren't you afraid of affecting the diplomatic relations between the two countries? We are in a critical period now. Someone will investigate whether you are the Western Xia envoys when you return." Yelu Qi paused and seemed to be explaining to Xia Qingqing, "Now that the Song Kingdom's envoys have been robbed and killed, the emperor is furious. He has dispatched all the imperial palaces to investigate this matter. During this time, all suspicious people inside and outside the city must be arrested and interrogated. Please forgive us." Surrounded by a group of cavalrymen, Li Qinglu looked at the crossbows in their hands and snorted. In the end, she gave up resisting and said, "Humph, I will definitely make you give me an explanation later." Xia Qingqing and Icy Snow looked at each other and didn't resist in the end. After all, in the face of so many fully armed cavalrymen, it was useless to resist. Moreover, with their relationship with Yelu Qi, it might not be a bad thing to be taken away by them. However, what surprised everyone was the man in black. Judging from his attire in broad daylight, it was obvious that he was a criminal. They all thought that he would rush out with his martial arts. Therefore, at least half of the attention of Liao's cavalrymen was focused on him. However, no one expected that he didn't resist at all and calmly allowed them to put shackles on him. Chapter 1508. Song Qingshu didn't plan to make a move now. Although Liao's cavalry was a little troublesome, it was just a little troublesome for him. The reason why he didn't make a move now was that the commotion would be too big. Unless he killed everyone present, he wouldn't be able to hide his identity. He didn't want to see a series of chain reactions after that. He sighed inwardly. Sometimes he couldn't help but envy the online novels he read in his previous life. Which of the male protagonists didn't conquer the world with a single sword? They didn't need to care about any conspiracies at all. It was really embarrassing for him to be restrained in this world. However, Song Qingshu also understood that his goal was to unify the world and not to defeat all the experts in the world with a sharp sword in his hand. There were many times when he had to make choices and weigh the pros and cons. In his opinion, it wasn't a wise choice to rescue Xia Qingqing and Icy Snow under the watchful eyes of the public. Instead, he would wait until they were brought back to the prison and rescue them in the dead of night without anyone knowing. Anyway, the leader of this group of cavalry was Yeluqi, and both sides had a friendly relationship. Presumably, he wouldn't make things difficult for the two girls during this period. After everyone was taken away by Liao's cavalry, Song Qingshu quietly followed them all the way to the official residence where all the palaces were stationed. The relevant officials examined everyone one by one. Li Qinglu and the others naturally claimed that they were Xixia's diplomatic delegation, while Xia Qingqing and Icy Snow said that they were here for a vacation. As for the man in black, he didn't say anything. It could be assumed that the most suspicious person was this man in black. But when his mask was removed, only an ordinary face was revealed. Even the relevant officials who were deployed by the imperial palace couldn't tell who he was. Finally, after a round of discussion, they decided to put these people in prison first and investigate their background. In particular, they didn't dare to slight the group of people who claimed to be from the Western Xia country's diplomatic corps. Song Qingshu took this opportunity to sneak into the prison. He knocked out a jailer and impersonated him. Not long after, the group of people was brought in one after another. After all, the people stationed in the Summer Palace were worried that they were really envoys of Western Xia. Xia Qingqing's and Icy Snow's rooms were the next best, and Yeluqi was the one who took good care of them. As for the black-clothed man, he was thrown into an ordinary cell. However, he didn't seem to mind at all. He was very calm. Hiding in the dark, he thought, this person is really strange. I wonder what his trump card is. Song Qingshu was now dressed in the uniform of an ordinary prison guard, and his face was purposely smeared with dust. These were all important people, so why would they pay attention to a prison guard like him? Except for the black-robed man's unexpected calmness, Li Qinglu and her companions were also calm and composed. After all, they were envoys of the Xixia country. The only trouble was to explain why they sneaked out of the Xianhui courtyard. On the contrary, Xia Qingqing and Icy Snow were the most apprehensive. Although Yeluqi had told them in private that they would be released quietly after the commotion died down, they were always worried that something might happen while they were in prison. Song Qingshu was secretly amused. He thought that after nightfall, he would rescue them as soon as possible so that they wouldn't be worried. Not long after, an official stationed in the Summer Palace respectfully released Li Qinglu and her companions. Obviously, they had verified Li Qinglu's information. "We are very sorry for offending Your Highness this time. Please forgive us, Your Highness, considering that this was an accident." "Where's Yeluqi? Why didn't he come in person?" Li Qinglu snorted coldly. She was a dignified princess. Naturally, she was angry to be locked up here. The official said awkwardly, "Lord Yelu has entered the palace to meet the emperor. He really can't split himself, so he asked me to convey his sincere apology to Your Highness on his behalf." Hearing their conversation, Song Qingshu, who was in the dark, almost laughed out loud. He didn't expect a gentleman like Yeluqi to also learn to play trick. Li Qinglu was obviously aware of this, but unfortunately, there was nothing she could do. She could only leave with a gloomy face. At this time, various sounds came from the prison where the black-clothed man was. Song Qingshu looked in the direction of the sounds and saw several officials beginning to interrogate the black-clothed man. After all, no matter how one looked at it, he was the biggest suspect. Unfortunately, no matter what the officials asked, the black-clothed man closed his eyes and kept his mouth shut. This made the officials angry. "Stubborn fool. Torture him. Let's see if your mouth is stubborn or your bones are stubborn." At this time, the black-clothed man finally opened his eyes and looked coldly at the official. "I advise you not to do this. I'm someone you can't afford to offend." The official was so angry that he laughed. "You're just a prisoner. How dare you speak so arrogantly here? Beat him up." A cold light flashed in the black-clothed man's eyes, as if he couldn't suppress the anger in his heart. In the dark, Song Qingshu was suddenly shocked. From the beginning to the end, the black-clothed man's expression didn't change. At first, he thought that he had this kind of poker face, but now that he looked at it carefully, he guessed that the black-clothed man had changed his appearance. The art of disguise was actually very common in Jianghu. However, in the whole world, only Azu and Song Qingshu could disguise themselves as whoever they wanted. Because Song Qingshu's internal energy was divine, he could also use qi to change his body shape, physical characteristics, smell, and so on. Therefore, he could be said to have surpassed his master. As for other people in Jianghu, the art of disguise was very crude. Often, they could only change their own appearance so that the enemy couldn't recognize them, but they couldn't disguise themselves as the person they wanted to. This person can't be Murong Jingyue, right? Looking at the black-clothed man, Song Qingshu felt that it was more and more possible. Now that the jailer was about to execute him, he could take the opportunity to test him. Stop! At this moment, the door of the cell opened, and a group of people walked in. The person in the lead was wrapped in a cloak, but from her slender body, it was obvious that she was a woman. Although the cloak covered most of her face, her smooth and round chin was revealed. Her fair skin matched with her delicate red lips, and it was obvious that she was an extremely beautiful woman. However, Song Qingshu's attention was not on her at all, but on the person behind her who looked like a guard. This person had a square face and wide eyes, and his eyes were bright and full of expression. It was obvious that his internal energy had reached an extremely high level. What the hell, why is it him? Song Qingshu originally thought that after experiencing so much, he had already cultivated to the realm of being able to remain calm even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him. But now, his expression still changed drastically. However, he couldn't be blamed. After all, anyone who saw a long-dead person standing in front of them, alive and well, would be shocked to the extreme. This person dressed like a guard was Yuan Qingji, who was killed by Dongfang Muxue on the peak of Mount Tai. What Dongfang Muxue said last time was true? Song Qingshu originally thought that Dongfang Muxue only said that to dispel Xia Qingqing's desire for revenge, using an illusory possibility to make her search. Who knew that Yuan Qingji would really come back to life? Moreover, from his pace and breathing, Yuan Qingji's martial arts had not weakened at all. Instead, it had improved by a whole level. This must be the effect of the art of origin nirvana that Dongfang Muxue had mentioned. This is going to be troublesome. Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. He clearly remembered how much Xia Qingqing loved Yuan Qingji back then. In order to avenge him, she had thought of all kinds of methods, even sacrificing herself to feed the tiger. If Qingqing knew that Yuan Qingji was still alive, what would she choose? Although his relationship with Xia Qingqing had improved by leaps and bounds in the past 2 years, reaching the stage where their spirit and body were one, Song Qingshu still felt uncertain when he thought about how Xia Qingqing had always been loyal to him. What if she chooses Yuan Qingji? Song Qingshu secretly made up his mind. If he did not secretly kill Yuan Qingji and pretend that he had never come back to life, then Xia Qingqing would not have to be so conflicted. Although Yuan Qingji's martial arts were not what they used to be, Song Qingshu was confident that it would not be difficult to take his life. However, this thought only flashed through Song Qingshu's mind. After all, things were different now. His own pride would not allow him to do such a thing. Let Qingqing choose again. Could it be that I am inferior to a mere Yuan Qingji? Song Qingshu snorted coldly. If she really chooses Yuan Qingji, it will prove that she has never belonged to me. What is there to be sad about? However, thinking of that possibility, he still felt a little sour. He secretly made up his mind that if that happened, he would use force to keep her by his side. Although it was not very kind, at least he would give her the right to know, hey. Song Qingshu suddenly thought of a very important matter. These years, the Golden Snake King's name has been very famous. It is impossible that Yuan Qingji has not heard of him. Why hasn't he appeared? Did he watch me get his wife and foundation? Of course, it would be useless even if Yuan Qingji came back. The current Golden Snake Camp was more than 10 times stronger than the Golden Snake Camp of the past. The entire Golden Snake Camp had been beaten into an iron plate. Now, the people in charge of the various forces under his command were only a small part of the old members of the Golden Snake Camp, who would still recognize him as the former leader. While Song Qingshu was in a daze, the mysterious woman and Yuan Qingji had already turned around and walked out. The man in black was also released and leisurely followed behind them. Hey, who is this woman? How could she take away the suspicious man in black so easily? Seeing the respectful attitude of the officials, Song Qingshu was even more puzzled. Big brother Yuan? At this moment, Xia Qingqing's trembling voice suddenly rang out. When Yuan Qingji came in, he had walked on the other side. Now that he was going back, he would pass by the room she was in. When she saw Yuan Qingji's appearance, Xia Qingqing couldn't believe it at first. When she rubbed her eyes and confirmed that she was not seeing things, she finally couldn't help but call out. Her voice was particularly abrupt in the silent cell. The group of people couldn't help but stop. Yuan Qingji turned around, puzzled. Miss, are you calling me? Miss. Xia Qingqing was startled. You don't recognize me? Yuan Qingji carefully looked her up and down, puzzled. Are we supposed to know each other? Xia Qingqing opened her mouth but couldn't speak for a moment. The joy of their reunion was instantly shrouded in ice. Why did he pretend not to know her? Was it because of the woman beside him? Or was it because he knew about what happened between her and Qingshu that he didn't want to recognize her? At this time, the woman wrapped in a cloak spoke. Guanan, we should go. Chapter 1509. The woman's voice was crisp and sweet, but Song Qingshu had no time to praise her. Instead, he thought to himself, Guanan? This name sounds so familiar. I seem to have heard it somewhere before. Unfortunately, he couldn't figure it out even after thinking for a long time. Xia Qingqing was also dumbfounded. She muttered the 2 words Guanan, wondering if she really recognized the wrong person. However, she quickly denied this thought. She was once Yuan Qingji's wife, so how could she recognize the wrong husband? Unfortunately, the other party had no intention of staying. When he heard the woman's words, he nodded and followed her. However, he clearly had some doubts in his heart. When he walked out of the door, he subconsciously looked back and looked at Xia Qingqing. He felt that this woman seemed a little familiar. Song Qingshu secretly frowned and quietly followed her out. He had too many doubts in his heart. Whether it was Yuan Qingji, whether the man in black was Murong Jingyue, or even the identity of the woman in the cloak, he was still a mystery. Does he really not recognize me? Sensing the confusion in his eyes, Xia Qingqing stood there in a daze. Icy Snow, who was at the side, walked up to support her and asked softly, Is that man Yuan Qingji? That's right. Xia Qingqing nodded. But why doesn't he recognize me? Maybe he has his own difficulties. Even though Icy Snow's first reaction was to think of Song Qingshu, she was kind-hearted. In addition to the fact that she was in the same boat as Xia Qingqing, she didn't say anything else and just comforted her softly. Meanwhile, Song Qingshu followed behind the group of people. When he saw them walking toward the palace, he couldn't help but wonder, who are these people? Did Yuan Qingji really lose his memory, or is he pretending not to know Xia Qingqing? Can't you just send someone to pick me up? Why did you come personally? Seeing that they had left the prison, the old man in black reprimanded the woman angrily. You have a noble identity. How can you step into the prison? Song Qingshu was even more puzzled. One must know that from the reaction of the people in the prison, this woman clearly had a noble identity. He didn't expect that the old man in black, who was just a prisoner, would dare to reprimand her like that. Could it be that his true identity wasn't from the pugilistic world but from the imperial court? At first, Song Qingshu was a little puzzled as to why Yeluqi and the other officials didn't recognize him if he was from the imperial court. Later, he recalled that he had disguised himself and quickly understood. This is no small matter. The Southern Song's diplomatic mission was killed. His Majesty is extremely furious. He even bypassed the Great Secret Service and the Ili by court and ordered all the imperial palaces to deploy troops to investigate this matter. If I just send someone over, I'm afraid I won't be able to rescue you, the woman explained in a crisp voice. On the surface, the Secret Bureau was an agency of the Liao Kingdom that was in charge of the affairs of the royal family, but in fact, it was a secret spy agency similar to the Imperial City Bureau of the Southern Song Dynasty, the Cleaning House of the Jin Kingdom, and the Flying Guillotine of the Qin Kingdom. The Ili Monastery was similar to the Ministry of Justice of the Han Dynasty. After all, Liao was a country established by the Khitans, so the names of some of its institutions were different from the Han Dynasty. The black-robed old man also understood the stake. He sighed and said, "But in the eyes of others, it's not appropriate." The woman chuckled and said, "Don't worry. With my current status, no one would dare to say anything if I wanted to protect someone. You mustn't lower your guard. I don't know how many people in the palace are waiting for you to make a mistake," the black-robed old man advised with a stern look on his face. "I was too careless this time. Moreover, I was hindered by the Xixia people. That's why I fell into Yeluqi's trap." In the dark, Song Qingshu's heart moved. Listening to their conversation, this woman was indeed someone from the palace. But was she a palace maid, a princess, or an imperial concubine? After chatting for a while, the two of them suddenly parted ways. The woman and Yuan Qingji walked together in the direction of the palace, while the black-clothed man turned around and left in another direction. There were people patrolling the vicinity of the palace. When they saw someone approaching, a group of soldiers immediately ran over to ask. As a result, the woman raised her hand and revealed something that looked like a gold medal. Then, the soldiers respectfully saluted and let the two of them enter the palace. Song Qingshu took a deep look at their backs. But in the end, he still chased after the black-clothed man. After all, the most important thing in his mind was the whereabouts of Murong Jingyue. As for the mysterious identity of the woman, and even the news about Yuan Qingji, it was far less important. "Your Excellency, who are you? You've been following me for so long. It's time for you to show yourself." The black-clothed old man suddenly stopped and snorted coldly. Song Qingshu walked out of the darkness. But he didn't want to reveal his identity, so he wore a silver mask on his face. The black-clothed old man's expression changed. In fact, he didn't feel anyone's aura at all. It was just that his decades of cultivation had given him a faint impulse. So, he deliberately stopped and shouted. He didn't expect that someone would really come out. "This person's martial arts are so high that I can't feel his aura at all." He clearly saw that the other party was not far in front of him, but the black-clothed old man was shocked to find that there seemed to be no one in that place. Song Qingshu didn't know that the black-clothed old man was tricking him. But even if he knew, it didn't matter. He was already prepared to show himself. "Your Excellency, who are you?" The black-clothed old man's hair stood on end. He was on full alert, defending while preparing to escape. Song Qingshu didn't answer. His figure flashed and directly grabbed at the black-clothed old man's face. As long as he took off the disguise on his face, he would know if he was Murong Jingyue or not. The black-clothed old man only saw a blur in front of him. The other party's hand was already less than 3 inches in front of him. He couldn't help but feel his soul leave his body. But after all, he had decades of pure martial arts. At this critical moment, he hurriedly raised his palms. He didn't hope to repel the other party, but only hoped to move the other party's hand 3 feet away. Then, he would take the opportunity to escape. Song Qingshu casually brushed away the other party's hands. But in his heart, he was shocked. The other party's internal energy seemed to be somewhat familiar. It seemed to be mixed origin qi. The black-clothed old man didn't expect that the attack that he had gathered decades of martial arts would be so easily resolved by the other party. Seeing the other party's hand falling down, he felt despair. Forget it, who knew that the other party's hand didn't penetrate his head? Instead, it only tore off the human skin mask on his face. Noticing that the other party was staring at him in a daze, the black-clothed old man didn't dare to hesitate. He immediately retreated and fled into the darkness. But he didn't feel happy at all. After all, with the martial arts that the other party had displayed, if the other party wanted to chase him, he wouldn't be able to escape. But what made him wild with joy was that the other party actually stood there in a daze. The other party didn't have the slightest intention of chasing him. How could he dare to stay any longer? With a few leaps, he had already disappeared into the night. Song Qingshu didn't chase after the other party because he knew that he wasn't facing Murong Jingyue, but another acquaintance, Jinyang hero Xiao Ban. Both parties had crossed paths during the Golden Snake Convention. Xiao Ban had also participated in the competition for the Golden Snake King, but they didn't fight against each other. However, because Blood Knife Ancestor had kidnapped Shui Xing, Song Qingshu had exchanged blows with Xiao Ban on the way to rescue her. Thus, he knew that Xiao Ban had some relations with the Shui family. "I'll let you go for Xing Er's sake," Song Qingshu muttered to himself. But he was getting more and more curious. Xiao Ban's identity was getting more and more mysterious. Everyone in the Jianghu thought that he was the famous Jinyang hero. But now that he thought about it, his various actions were a little strange. It seemed that he was plotting something big. Forget it. I'll save Icy Snow and Qing Qing first. Song Qingshu realized that it had been a long time since he came out of the prison. He was worried that something might have happened over there, so he gave up on the idea of investigating further. When he changed back into the jailer's uniform and was about to return to the cell, he was suddenly stopped at the periphery. "Buddy, the prison has been cleared. Let's wait outside." Song Qingshu slightly furrowed his brows. He thought that since the diplomatic corps of the Xixia country had left and Xiao Ban had been rescued, there were only 2 women, Icy Snow and Xia Qingqing, except for some prisoners who were already in the prison. He couldn't help but feel a little worried. "Is there any big shot inside?" Song Qingshu asked in a deep voice. "The son of the Northern Privy Council has come to interrogate the prisoners," the jailer answered casually. But Song Qingshu's expression changed slightly. Because the Northern Privy Council ambassador, Yelu Rinxian, was far away in the northwest, and Yelu Isin was acting as the Northern Privy Council ambassador. Of course, the Northern Privy Council ambassador they were talking about didn't refer to Yelu Rinxian, but the King of Wei. He had seen what kind of person Yelu Sui, Yelu Isin's son, was. Moreover, Yelu Sui was beaten up for trying to flirt with Icy Snow. Even a fool would know that Yelu Sui had come back for revenge. Song Qingshu couldn't hold back anymore. The jailers were about to turn pale, but their acupoints were quickly sealed. "Beauty, you didn't expect that you still couldn't escape from me in the end, did you?" Yelu Sui was looking at Icy Snow with his head held high. At the same time, he looked at Xia Qingqing greedily. As the Han people say, a misfortune may turn out to be a blessing in disguise. "I already have a great beauty, but now I have another charming beauty. TSK. God is really kind to me." Xia Qingqing was already in a bad mood. Hearing his words, she got even angrier. But he seemed to know Icy Snow, so she took her hand and asked, "Who is this bastard?" Icy Snow's voice was as cold as ice. He's just a playboy who flirts with innocent women. Xia Qingqing rolled her eyes and changed her previous anger. She said in a soft and charming voice, "I think this gentleman is extraordinarily handsome. Besides, he can come and go as he pleases. Obviously, he has a high status. I think it'll be easy for him to get us out." When she was roaming in Jianghu, she was a seductress who didn't play by the rules. Now she could easily get them with some tricks. Icy Snow looked at her strangely. She couldn't figure out why she was acting coquettishly. Could it be that she had given up on herself because of Yuan Qingji? But she was a smart person. She quickly realized that Xia Qingqing probably wanted to trick this playboy into prison and then take the opportunity to escape. Of course. As long as you obey me, not only will I get you out, but I'll also live a luxurious life from now on. Yelu Sui also patted his chest proudly. Although he was a good-for-nothing, he had a good family background. In order to curry favor with his father, many small families sent beautiful women to throw themselves at him. When he saw Xia Qingqing's appearance, he subconsciously thought of how those beautiful women used to curry favor with him. For a moment, he couldn't help but enjoy it. Chapter 15:10. From Yelu Sui's point of view, the two women had no choice but to hug his thighs in order to get out of prison. He had always loved to do such good deeds. Not only could he save the two beauties, but he could also enjoy their alluring bodies in return. Xia Qingqing pulled Icy Snow's sleeve. "Big sister, young master is actually willing to save us. Why are you still angry over the previous misunderstanding?" Icy Snow couldn't bring herself to feign civility with this person. However, she couldn't disregard Xia Qingqing's face, so she could only reply vaguely. Xia Qingqing also gave Yelu Sui a look. "Young master, my big sister has actually agreed in her heart, but she can't bring herself to do it. After all, you have offended her before. Why don't you persuade her and move her with your sincerity?" Okay, Yelu Sui rubbed his hands together. He thought of the two charming beauties throwing themselves at him, especially Icy Snow's cold and arrogant attitude. She even beat him up. But what's the use of having high martial arts? In the end, didn't she still come to his crotch to have fun? When he thought of how the high and mighty Icy Snow was ravaged by him, Yelu Sui felt a surge of heat rising from his lower abdomen. He couldn't wait to open the cell door. "Little lady, I'm coming." Ouch! Unfortunately, before he could finish his sentence, Xia Qingqing punched him in the eye, causing him to fall backward. Xia Qingqing didn't stop at all. She sealed his acupoints and kicked him. A toad lusting after a swan's flesh. "I'll beat you to death." Seeing her beating Yelu Sui up, Icy Snow couldn't help but be dumbfounded. As if she hadn't gotten used to the contrast between before and after, she pulled her back after a long time and said, "Forget it, he will die if you continue beating him." Xia Qingqing clapped her hands. "Big sister, you're so kind. I've killed so many lechers in the past." Although she said so, she didn't continue beating him up. When Song Qingshu arrived, he saw Yelu Sui on the ground, who was beaten up like a panda. He couldn't help but have a strange expression. Although these women are as docile as kittens in my place, they're all formidable tigresses in the martial world. Just now, because Yelu Sui thought that he could use his power to make the two women bow down to him, he purposely dismissed the people in the cell, so when Xia Qingqing beat him up, no one helped her. At that moment, Song Qingshu was wearing a jailer's uniform and had changed his appearance. When Icy Snow and Xia Qingqing saw him, their expressions changed slightly. They knew that if he shouted and alerted the guards outside, they would be in trouble. Without any verbal communication, the two women attacked him from the left and right as if they had planned it beforehand. Song Qingshu was startled, but he quickly realized that they didn't recognize him. When he thought of this, he wasn't in a hurry to acknowledge them. He directly leaned to the side, easily dodging the two women's attacks. Be it Icy Snow or Xiaqingqing, they were extremely surprised. After all, the person opposite them was dressed like a foot soldier and was the kind of cannon fodder that could be easily dispatched. The reason why the two of them teamed up was to prevent him from making any noise and alerting his companions. But who knew that the two of them would misjudge him? This person's martial arts was surprisingly high, and he easily dodged their joint attack. Icy Snow and Xiaqingqing tacitly attacked again. This time, they didn't hold back because they knew that the other party was probably an expert. Unfortunately, as soon as they raised their hands, their bodies suddenly went limp, and they were embraced by the person on both sides. You! The two women were horrified. They didn't see anything clearly, and yet they were captured by the other party. It was simply unbelievable. Today, there was a fortune teller who said that I'm destined to be in love, and I didn't really believe it. I didn't expect that there would actually be two beautiful ladies throwing themselves into my arms. My luck with women is really not shallow, Song Qingshu said as he kissed the two women's cheeks from both sides. The two women's skin is so tender and smooth. Song Qingshu couldn't stop praising them. You! Icy Snow was ashamed and indignant. Just as she was about to risk her life, Xiaqingqing laughed and said, "Don't panic, big sister. Apart from Qingshu, who else in this world has such a high level of martial arts and such a bad taste?" Compared to Icy Snow, who had been tracking Murong Jingyue's whereabouts all these years, Xiaqingqing spent more time by Song Qingshu's side, so she naturally knew more about his bad taste and hobbies. Besides, she could feel a very familiar aura when she was hugged by Song Qingshu. Song Qingshu was stunned and couldn't help but smile bitterly. "You can even recognize me?" Upon hearing his real voice, Icy Snow sized him up in disbelief. "Qingshu, is it really you?" Song Qingshu took off the mask on his face and smiled gently. "It's really me." Icy Snow was pleasantly surprised at first, then she blushed. "You're really a bastard." Upon seeing her angry look, Song Qingshu's heart softened. "Icy Snow, it's been hard on you all these years. Was there anything warmer than a lover's comfort in this world?" Icy Snow suddenly felt that all the hardships and fatigue she had been through all these years were swept away. Just as she was about to lie in his arms and rest, she suddenly remembered that there was someone else beside her. Embarrassed, she hurriedly tried to push him away. However, Xiaqingqing seemed to know what she was worried about. She giggled and said, "Big sister, why are you so flustered? There are no outsiders here anyway." Based on Xiaqingqing's character, she wasn't willing to let her man hug her left and right. However, there were two exceptions in this world. One was Audiobook, who was her rival in love, and the other was Icy Snow, who was in the same boat. Apart from these two, Xiaqingqing wasn't willing to let Song Qingshu hug her left and right like other women. Upon hearing Xiaqingqing's words, Icy Snow's face turned even redder. She thought, "You've just met your husband, and you're suddenly in the mood to make such sarcastic remarks." However, she was considerate and didn't say it out loud. At this moment, Song Qingshu said, "This isn't a place to chat. Let's talk after we get out." The two women nodded secretly and stayed by his side. When the door of the cell was opened, because the acupoints of the guards at the door had just been sealed by Song Qingshu, they easily walked out. Before alerting the surrounding soldiers, Song Qingshu hugged the two women and disappeared into the night sky. Not long after they left, Yelu Sui gradually woke up in the cell. As he crawled up, he cursed, "You two bitches, wait until I catch you and see how I'll press you under my body and humiliate you." Suddenly, he felt the light in front of him dimmed. He raised his head in confusion and found that someone was standing in front of him. Just as he was about to say something, a cold light flashed in front of his eyes. Yelu Sui also looked at the other party with a look of disbelief while holding his neck that was splattering blood. He wanted to say something, but blood kept coming out of his mouth. He couldn't speak at all. In the end, he unwillingly fell to the ground with his eyes wide open. "Boss." Chapter 15:11. When the prison guards finally came in, they found that Yelu Sui was also lying in a pool of blood, dead. They couldn't help but be shocked, especially when they thought that he was Wei Wang's only son. Many of them were so scared that their bodies almost melted. However, no one had the ability to hide such a big thing, and no one dared to hide it. Soon, it was reported to the upper echelons, instantly shocking the officialdom of Shangjing City. It was said that even the emperor was furious. Song Qingshu and the others naturally didn't know what happened here. He left with Icy Snow and Xia Qingqing. He originally wanted to go to Zhao Min's place, but after thinking about it, he gave up. When the women met, it would most likely be like Mars colliding with Earth. Even if there was an explosion in the unknown, the turbulent waves in the dark would be unbearable. Song Qingshu shuddered just by imagining a few scenes. It was rare that Xia Qingqing and Icy Snow had a good relationship, so there was no need to add another person to make trouble. Song Qingshu decisively gave up the idea of going to Zhao Min's place, and then brought the two women to another house in the south of the city. The Mongols had a secret stronghold in Shangjing City, so did the Jin Kingdom. This was one of the secret industries of the laundry brothel in Shangjing City. Song Qingshu had the highest authority in the laundry brothel, so he easily took over this house. After settling down, the three of them sat around a table. Xia Qingqing was slightly younger, so she said with some excitement, "Qingshu, why are you here?" "It's a long story. I came here to deal with the Liao Song alliance, and to find the whereabouts of Murong Jingyue," Song Qingshu answered. Hearing his words, the dignified Icy Snow's eyelashes fluttered, and a trace of tenderness appeared in her eyes. "Qingshu, I didn't expect you to help me find Murong Jingyue when you're so busy." Song Qingshu was startled, but he reacted quickly. "How could I forget about this?" Of course, he wouldn't be foolish enough to say that he was looking for Murong Jingyue to cure Zhao Min of the three-corpse divine pills poison. Moreover, half of it was for Icy Snow's sake. Upon hearing his words, Icy Snow's eyes grew softer and softer, as though tears were about to seep out of her eyes. "Then how did you appear in the prison so coincidentally?" When Xia Qingqing noticed how affectionate the two of them were, she smiled and didn't feel the slightest bit of disgust. "Icy Snow must be different from other women. I followed the Xixia people here." Song Qingshu then described what had happened earlier. "I didn't rescue you in the woods. You won't blame me, will you?" "How could that be? That kind of situation wasn't suitable for saving people," said Icy Snow with a gentle smile. Song Qingshu lamented, "Sister is really considerate." Xia Qingqing, who was at the side, teased, "What sister? She's clearly your sister-in-law." She knew the story of how she met Song Qingshu when she talked to Icy Snow previously. However, as soon as she said that, Icy Snow and Song Qingshu looked at each other awkwardly. After all, the two of them had already gotten to the point of rolling around in bed. It was strange to hear Icy Snow address her as sister-in-law. Upon seeing their expressions, Xia Qingqing also realized that something was wrong. She quickly changed the topic and said, "All right, Brother Song. Since you've already mixed in with the prison guards, why didn't you come out to rescue us after seeing us being molested by that good-for-nothing rich kid?" Song Qingshu smiled bitterly and said, "There's no need for me to do anything. Didn't the two of you already beat him half to death?" Xia Qingqing stuck out her tongue. Clearly, she felt a little embarrassed when she thought of letting him see her tough side. "Actually, the reason why I didn't do anything was because I went after the man in black who was in the same cell as you," Song Qingshu explained. Xia Qingqing let out an because she suddenly realized that since Song Qingshu was pretending to be a prison guard, he must have seen how she looked when she called for Yuan Qingji. Would he have any thoughts about this? At the thought of this, she began to worry about her gains and losses. Icy Snow glanced at her and secretly held her hand to comfort her. "Is there anything wrong with the identity of that man in black? Is he worthy of your attention?" Her question resolved Xia Qingqing's awkwardness to a certain extent, earning her a grateful glance. Song Qingshu explained, because I suspected that he was Murong Jingyue. This time, it was Icy Snow's turn to exclaim in surprise. However, she soon noticed the meaning behind Song Qingshu's words and sighed softly. It seems that he isn't. Song Qingshu nodded. That's right. I went to test him and took off his mask. I found out that he was actually the hero of Jinyang, Xiao Ban. Xiao Ban? Xia Qingqing exclaimed. Xiao Ban had participated in the Golden Snake King's election, so she had a deep impression of him. However, she could not connect the hero of Jinyang with this man in black. That's right. I didn't expect it to be him either. Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. By the way, Qingqing, did you come from Beijing? Yes. Xia Qingqing knew what he was going to ask. Miss Xue is knowledgeable and decisive. She has already taken control of the 8 banners aristocrats in Beijing. She's gradually gaining the upper hand in the war against Wu Sangui. I'm afraid she'll be able to get rid of him completely in less than 2 years. By then, she should be able to help you. When Xia Qingqing found out about Dongfang Mushue's true identity, she hated her to death. However, when she found out that Yuan Qingji was still alive, this hatred disappeared and was replaced by deep admiration. After all, as a woman, Dongfang Mushue had accomplished many things that men could not. Still 2 more years? Sensing the pressure from Mongolia, Song Qingshu increasingly felt that there wasn't enough time. However, he also understood that it was impressive enough for Dongfang Mushue to turn the situation around and pacify Wu Sangui in such a short period of time. One must know that the 3-border rebellion in history lasted for 8 years and almost overthrew the Qing dynasty. If Wu Sangui hadn't died midway due to the passage of time, it would be hard to tell who would be the final victor. Knowing that there were no results in the Qing dynasty for the time being, Song Qingshu collected his thoughts and turned to ask, Icy Snow, why did that Xiao Ban attack you? Icy Snow was also at a loss. I'm not sure either, but it seems like he wants the saber in my hand. Your saber? Song Qingshu was startled. It should be your big brother whose cold moon saber. Icy Snow rolled her eyes at him with some hidden bitterness. After all, what happened between them made her feel guilty to her late husband. Back then, after Big Brother Hu died, this saber was buried with him. Not long ago, when I passed by Tsangzhou, I thought that I might be able to find Murong Jingyue to avenge Big Brother Hu, so I deliberately took this saber out. Song Qingshu secretly pondered. Wasn't the Cold Moon saber owned by Nanlan's father? The father and daughter were robbed and killed by a group of mountain bandits. Miao Renfeng passed by and saved them, and they got married. Then, Miao Renfeng went to Hu Yidao's grave to pay her respects and buried the saber in the grave to honor her good friend. However, this world was very chaotic, so there might be some errors. Song Qingshu didn't dwell on it. What's so special about this Cold Moon saber? Why does Xiao Ban want it? Moreover, the Xixia princess heard that you brought a saber with you, so she hurriedly came to capture you. I don't know either. Icy Snow's beautiful eyes widened. Maybe it's because the Cold Moon saber can cut iron like mud. Although it's not as famous as the dragon saber in the pugilistic world, I think it's not much worse. However, Song Qingshu didn't think so. Although a saber that could cut iron like mud would make people in the pugilistic world fight for it, what kind of divine weapon couldn't a country find? Unless there was a big secret like the dragon saber, why would the country care about it? Where's the saber now? Let me see. Thinking that both Xiao Ban and the Xixia people came for the Cold Moon saber, Song Qingshu faintly felt that there might be some secret hidden in it. Unexpectedly, Icy Snow looked worried. The saber was taken away when I was thrown into prison. Oh! Song Qingshu raised his eyebrows and quickly stood up. It's probably still in the evidence room in the prison. Let's go back and look for it. He certainly couldn't let such a crucial saber go missing. Okay. Icy Snow also stood up. This saber was Hu Yidao's relic, and it was related to her son's saber technique in the future. She was more anxious than anyone else. I'll go with you. Xia Qingqing didn't want to stay here alone. When she thought about Yuan Qingji, she felt that only staying by Song Qingshu's side could give her a sense of security. Song Qingshu nodded. Because of what had happened with Yuan Qingji, he was worried about leaving Xia Qingqing here alone. He did not want her to overthink things. As for how to deal with Yuan Qingji's matter, the two of them would discuss it when they were free. Worried that the cold moon saber would be taken away, Song Qingshu brought the two girls along and quickly returned to the prison. However, to their surprise, the 3 floors of the prison were filled with guards. It was obvious that the security was tight. It's probably because we escaped and that foppish young master was beaten up, so this place is under martial law, Icy Snow said softly. She didn't know that Yelu Sui was also dead. This is going to be difficult, Xia Qingqing said with a frown as she looked at the heavily guarded guards not far away. Don't worry, this won't be a problem for your husband. Song Qingshu kissed her on the cheek and laughed. Wait for me here. I'll go in and get the treasured saber and come out. This person is really... Xia Qingqing stood on the spot with a flushed face while holding her cheek. Icy Snow held her hand and said with a smile, Little sister Qing'er, this proves that Qingshu likes you a lot. Xia Qingqing bit her lip and stomped her feet. Even big sister is teasing me. Icy Snow said softly, I just want to tell you that since you're so happy now, why are you so obsessed with the past? Xia Qingqing knew that Icy Snow was reminding her about Yuan Qingji. She sighed faintly. I've already made up my mind. It's just that Big Brother Yuan used to be me. If Big Brother who came back to life, would you still be as carefree as you are now? Icy Snow was taken aback and didn't know how to answer. Yes, if Hu Yidao came back to life, what would she choose? Just as the two girls were feeling lost, a tender shout suddenly sounded in their ears. So you 2 demonesses are here. Return my brother's life. This book's official account. Monk Lu Ru today, the official account promoted a game. In order to thank the readers for downloading, the monk will organize a red packet activity on the weekend. The total number of downloads will be doubled. For example, if there are 5,000 downloads, I'll give 10,000 yuan, of course. I'm sure it won't be as many as 5,000 downloads, it'll be difficult to break 1,000. The specific number of red packets and the method of snatching the red packets will be decided by the brothers voting tomorrow. But compared to the sunny red packets, I'm more inclined to have fewer red packets and more money per red packet. That way, it'll be more interesting. In addition, in order to thank the gentleman for downloading, the monk will release more chapters tomorrow. In view of the previous lesson, I won't link it to the number of downloads. I'll directly add 4 chapters. If there's any spare time, I'll add more chapters. If you haven't seen it, welcome to the monk's official account, Monk Lu Ru. You can download the game in the latest tweet. Of course, you can also see the female characters' pictures in the monk's official account, as well as some other benefits. Chapter 15:12. A tall woman suddenly rushed out from the shadows, her beautiful face now flashing with hatred. Yelu Nanxian? Xia Qingqing cried out in surprise. Although the two of them didn't know each other, they had met at the Golden Snake gathering before, so they recognized each other. Yelu Nanxian ignored her, the sword in her hand glinted with a cold light, stabbing straight at the two women. It turned out that after receiving news of her brother's death, she came to the prison to investigate. From the description of what happened, she knew that the biggest suspects were Xia Qingqing and Icy Snow, who escaped from the prison. She felt uncomfortable seeing her brother's miserable state, so she came out for a breath of fresh air, but who knew she would run into these two women? Icy Snow's expression changed. She pushed away Xia Qingqing, who was still in a daze. The belt in her sleeve shot out to meet Yelu Nanxian. Yelu Nanxian snorted coldly, changing her swordsmanship, easily parrying the ribbon coming at her, instantly arriving 3 feet in front of Icy Snow. Yelu Nanxian's martial arts was already one of the best among the younger generation, and with this sudden attack, Icy Snow was forced to face the enemy in a hurry, falling into a disadvantageous position in an instant. Fortunately, Xia Qingqing had already reacted. With a wave of her hand, a golden snake all shot towards Yelu Nanxian. Her golden snake sword had also been confiscated in the prison, but there were still a few golden snake alls left on her. Yelu Nanxian's eyes narrowed. In truth, in terms of martial arts, both Icy Snow and Xia Qingqing were on par with her. Facing this golden serpent all, Yelu Nanxian didn't dare to be careless. She quickly twisted her waist in midair, dodging the golden serpent all's strange attack. Icy Snow took the opportunity to increase the distance between them again, admiring the flexibility of her waist while using the white python whip skill with her ribbon, preventing Yelu Nanxian from getting any closer. At this time, Xia Qingqing spoke. "Miss Nanxian, why did you suddenly attack us? Is there some misunderstanding?" Although the two of them weren't close friends, due to the golden snake gathering, they could be considered friends. Xia Qingqing didn't understand why they would attack each other as soon as they met. Yelu Nanxian harumphed coldly, "You know what you've done." Finishing her words, Yelu Nanxian stepped out with a mysterious movement technique, approaching the two women. Noticing the hatred in her eyes, Xia Qingqing's expression changed. She didn't dare to be careless anymore. She quickly picked up the golden snake all and fired it from time to force the other party to retreat. However, she was secretly worried. Her and Icy Snow's weapons had been confiscated previously. Now that they had lost their weapons, Icy Snow could still use the ribbon to replace the silver bell and golden lock to perform the white python whip technique. On the other hand, she couldn't perform most of her martial arts without the golden snake sword. While she was distracted, Yelu Nanxian suddenly took out a crossbow from her waist and shot an arrow at Icy Snow. At the same time, she leaped up and stabbed her sword at Xia Qingqing. Icy Snow's expression changed. She had been focusing all her attention on Yelu Nanxian, so how could she have known that she would suddenly take out a crossbow? It had to be known that crossbows were a powerful weapon used by the government to deal with the people in the world of martial artists. They were fast and powerful, and normal martial artists would not be able to dodge them. In fact, if a 100-man squad fired their crossbows at a close distance, even the 5 ultimate martial artists would die if they were not careful. It was precisely because of the existence of crossbows and armies, as well as some hidden experts worshipped by the government, that the countries in this world had enough deterrence against all kinds of pugilistic world experts. Otherwise, whoever had the highest martial arts would become the emperor. Yelu Nanxian's sudden arrow was 3 times faster than an ordinary crossbow arrow. Not to mention, there was no warning at all. On top of that, the two women were only about 10 feet away from each other. How could Icy Snow dodge it? She could even see the cold glint of the arrowhead. Icy Snow sighed in her heart, forget it. I didn't expect to be separated by life and death so soon after I reunited with Qingshu." Just as Xia Qingqing was about to lose her life, a gust of wind suddenly shot out from the side, forcibly knocking the arrow to the side. Icy Snow had just escaped death. She looked to the side with joy, but before she could rejoice, she saw that Yelu Nanxian's sword had already pierced into Xia Qingqing's chest. "Ah!" Icy Snow cried out in alarm, but it was too late to save Xia Qingqing. At that moment, a figure suddenly rushed out and grabbed Xia Qingqing. The other hand raised, catching the sword that was inches away from Yelu Nanxian. Yelu Nanxian's lightning-fast sword instantly stopped. Yelu Nanxian was shocked and angry at the same time. In this world, there were only a few people who could catch her sword with 2 fingers. Looking up, it was indeed the person she guessed. Biting her lips, she angrily shouted, "Song, get out of my way!" This person was indeed Song Qingshu. He had just come out from the prison to find something, but he didn't expect to run into the scene of 3 women fighting. Why are you fighting? He even secretly guessed that it couldn't be because of jealousy, right? But he immediately denied this speculation. After all, the Yellow Nancian he knew was usually calm and collected, but deep down in her bones she was incomparably proud. She would never do something like this. Why don't you ask them yourself what they did? Yellow Nancian looked at the 2 women, her anger still lingering. Song Qinshu was startled, turning to look at Xia Qingqing. What did you do? Xia Qingqing was not a good-tempered person to begin with, adding to the fact that she was attacked without rhyme or reason and almost lost her life. She was even angrier. She coldly snorted. We were just having a nice chat here, but the moment she came, she pulled out her sword and attacked us. Who knows what happened? You. Yellow Nancian's almond-shaped eyes widened, but unfortunately, her sword was caught between Song Qingshu's fingers. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't pull it out. Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. Everyone calm down, speak slowly. I believe there must be some misunderstanding. What kind of misunderstanding could there be? Yellow Nancian's eyes reddened, tears rolling down her cheeks like pearls from a broken necklace. My older brother went to the prison to interrogate them, but who would have thought that the 2 of them would take the opportunity to kill my older brother and escape from the prison? Not only that, they even beat my older brother to such a miserable state. He must have suffered great torture before he died. Although she didn't like her older brother's bullying and tyrannical ways, they were siblings after all. Ever since they were little, her older brother had always taken good care of her, so their relationship had always been very good. Now that she saw Yellow Sui's tragic death, she was naturally extremely sad and angry. That person is dead? Xia Qingqing was surprised. Although she didn't know Yellow Sui's identity, from his description, she knew he was the same person who had come to the prison and harassed them. You sure know how to act. Yellow Nancian sneered. Knowing her brother was dead, Xia Qingqing didn't want to argue with her anymore. She softened her tone. That man came to the prison and tried to take advantage of me and Sister Bing Shui. I did teach him a good lesson, but he left after beating him up. Could it be that he suffered internal injuries? That shouldn't be the case. I know how much strength I used. It's just some superficial wounds. Yellow Nancian trembled. What internal injuries? My brother died because someone slit his throat. Thinking of her brother's tragic state, she felt a chill run down her spine. That's impossible, it wasn't us. Xia Qingqing hurriedly said. The prison was heavily guarded, only the 2 of you escaped. If it wasn't you, who else could it be? Yellow Nancian angrily retorted. Song Qinshu finally understood the whole story. He didn't expect Yellow Sui to also die. No wonder the prison was so heavily guarded. It was only because of the prison break. Nancian, they aren't lying. Yellow Nancian didn't believe him. Humph, they're your women, of course you'll speak up for them. Although she wasn't sure, she noticed the way the 2 women looked at Song Qinshu, as a woman herself. How could she not see the relationship between them? Thinking of this, she felt even more annoyed. Hearing this, Xia Qingqing and Bing Shui's faces turned red. After all, they were widows living alone, they had husbands in name. Now that an outsider had exposed their relationship, it was no wonder they felt awkward. I'm not speaking up for them, I was there too. Song Qinshu said in a low voice. You were there too? Yellow Nancian was surprised. That's right, Song Qinshu nodded. I was the one who rescued them from the prison. Yellow Nancian's face suddenly paled. So you were the one who slashed them. In that instant, all her hopes turned to dust. Song Qinshu knew at a glance that she was thinking the wrong thing. He snapped. What nonsense are you thinking? Your brother wasn't killed by them, nor was I the one who killed him. Yellow Nancian bit her lip. I know my brother's character. He must have been tempted to bully your 2 lovers, and you saw him. How could the world-renowned Golden Snake King tolerate another man offending his forbidden woman? So he killed him. In any case, he's just a hedonistic son of a rich family. Why would he care about you? She knew her brother's daily habits, and could more or less guess what he was doing in prison. Although it was shameful, it wasn't a crime worthy of death. Hearing her call him lover and forbidden woman, both Xia Qingqing and Bing Shui felt extremely embarrassed, but there was a strange feeling in their hearts. They could indeed be considered Song Qingshu's lover. Your imagination is quite strong, Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. I know Yelu Sui, how could I kill him? Although my brother is the son of Wei Wang, you don't have to care about him, do you? Yelu Nanxian still didn't believe it. Song Qingshu looked at the sparkling tears on her face and said softly, I don't really care about the son of Wei Wang, but he's your brother. Why would I kill my brother-in-law? As soon as he said this, Xia Qingqing and Bing Shui's expressions instantly became extremely strange. Bing Shui had a faint smile on her face, while Xia Qingqing secretly spat. I knew it, none of the beautiful women around this bastard can escape from his palm. Last time, I already felt that they were flirting with each other. Next time when I return to Shandong, I'll have to remind Audiobook to control her husband, so that he doesn't fool around all day. Because of her identity, it was not convenient for Xia Qingqing to say anything about Song Qingshu, but the jealousy gene in her bones inevitably flared up, so she subconsciously thought of finding Audiobook. At this time, Yelu Nanxian's originally pale cheeks instantly turned red. She was ashamed and angry. What brother-in-law? Unexpectedly, crossbows were not only weapons of mass destruction in ancient times, but also prohibited in modern times. Chapter 15:13. With our relationship, how could I kill your brother? Song Qingshu reached out to wipe the tears off her face and said pitifully, My condolences, I will help you find the murderer. Noticing the two women's strange gazes, Yelu Nanxian couldn't stand it anymore. She stomped her feet, turned around, and ran away. Before she disappeared, she said, Who needs your help? I will check again to see if what you said is true or not. Although she said that, she actually believed it in her heart. Seeing Yelu Nanxian almost running away, Xia Qingqing walked over and said with a faint smile, Prince Song really has a lot of female friends in the world. Icy Snow also frowned slightly. It was obvious that she was having a headache about this fickle man. Faintly sensing the murderous intent in the air, Song Qingshu hurriedly changed the topic. Ahem, I just checked inside and only found Qingqing's golden snake sword and Icy Snow's silver bell golden lock. As for the cold moon saber, it's gone missing. As he said that, he handed the stolen golden snake sword and soft rope to the two women. Gone missing? Icy Snow's beautiful face turned pale when she heard that the cold moon saber was missing. I was confused before, but now it seems that the person who took the cold moon saber is most likely the mysterious person who killed Yelu Sui. Song Qingshu analyzed. Could it be the Shao band you mentioned before? Icy Snow asked hurriedly. After all, Shao band also came for the cold moon saber. No, Song Qingshu shook his head. I have been following Shao band, so he didn't have the chance to come back to kill and take the saber. Then could it be the people from Western Xia? Xia Qingqing also analyzed. That's possible, Song Qingshu thought for a while and said with uncertainty, but they just need to take the saber. There's no need to kill Yelu Sui. After all, Yelu Sui is Yelu Isen's only son and Yelu Nanxian's brother. The Western Xia Crown Prince is about to marry Yelu Nanxian. Why would he kill Yelu Sui? As he was analyzing, he suddenly saw the two women's strange gazes. He heard Xia Qingqing mumble in a low voice, Why do you always like to find other people's wives? Song Qingshu almost spat out a mouthful of blood. She and I have been together for a long time. It's just that she interfered in our marriage. Even though he explained, the two women still looked as if they knew what his hobby was. Song Qingshu was also very helpless, so he simply did not explain. Could it be that someone in the Western Xia doesn't want to see this marriage succeed? Xia Qingqing raised another conjecture. She had followed Audiobook and Dongfang Muxue for the past few years, so her vision was no longer comparable to that of the pugilistic world woman of the past. That's not impossible. We need to investigate further, Song Qingshu said in a low voice. However, the clamor of soldiers soon came from not far away. It turned out that the battle here had alerted the guards over there. Let's go back first and think about it at length. Song Qingshu hugged the two women with each hand and left before the soldiers arrived. After returning to the secret hideout of the laundry yard, Song Qingshu said to the two women, "It's getting late. You two must be tired after being tossed around for the whole day. Take a rest first, and we'll go and find out more information tomorrow morning." Icy Snow and Xia Qingqing nodded. They had fought several battles today, and they were also captured and imprisoned. They were indeed exhausted. Fortunately, Song Qingshu had already thoughtfully instructed the servants to prepare hot water in advance. The two women then found their clothes and went to take a bath. On the other hand, Song Qingshu began to organize his next thoughts. Apart from looking for Murong Jingyue, he now had to find the murderer and the Cold Moon Saber. However, these two tasks could probably be combined into one. After finding the saber, he would most likely find the murderer. According to various information, this Cold Moon Saber was most likely related to the Mandarin Duck Saber, and he could start from this aspect. Tomorrow, he would go to the Western Xia Diplomatic Corps to check if they were the ones who did it. In addition, he could ask Xiaoband to see if he knew any secrets about the Mandarin Duck Saber. There was also Yuan Qingji's matter. After thinking for a while, he felt dizzy. Song Qingshu simply stopped thinking and decided to peep first. Ah pooh! How could a scholar's matter be called peeping? He would think about it after seeing the two women bathing. Unfortunately, things didn't go according to his wishes. The two women each had their own worries and obviously didn't have the mood to take a leisurely bath today. Soon, they finished bathing. When Song Qingshu was about to sneak in, the door was already opened from the inside. "What are you trying to do?" Icy Snow asked in puzzlement when she saw his sneaky behavior. Song Qingshu looked embarrassed. He lifted his hand that was about to open the door and touched the back of his head. That's nothing. I'm just here to see if you have enough hot water." Haha! Icy Snow had a strange expression on her face. She faintly felt that he was up to no good. Xia Qingqing, who was at the side, laughed and said, "Sister Icy, don't believe his nonsense. He just wants to come in and steal." Icy Snow's expression became even more strange. After all, when she knew Song Qingshu, he was still an upright and aloof person, although he was also a little lecherous. Song Qingshu also felt a little embarrassed. Icy Snow was different from other women. She had accompanied him during his darkest times. Therefore, he always wanted to leave a perfect impression on her. It's getting late. You should rest early. I'll be going back to my room first." Xia Qingqing pushed him to Icy Snow and said with a smile, "You haven't seen each other for so long. You must have a lot to talk about. Spend some time with Sister Icy." As she spoke, she winked at Song Qingshu. Her eyes were exceptionally bright and charming. Then, she ran back to her room with a grin. Song Qingshu was so angry that he wanted to smack her but he didn't expect her to send him such an assist. His previous gloominess was instantly swept away. He indeed had a lot of things to talk about with Icy Snow. Of course, he wanted to sleep with her more. However, he only dared to think about it. He loved and respected Icy Snow and was afraid of offending her. Besides, Xia Qingqing had solemnly said that she was only willing to accompany him with Audio. He couldn't even think about other women, so he could only give up on this idea. This Qingqing. Icy Snow stomped her feet. A layer of redness appeared on her snow-like skin. Although she was close to Song Qingshu, they were far from being an old married couple. In addition, they had been separated for many days, so the shyness in her heart grew stronger. "Have you been well these days, sister?" Song Qingshu held Icy Snow's hand and asked affectionately. Icy Snow smiled sweetly. Of course I've been well. Song Qinshu sighed. When I met you this time, I realized that you've lost weight. I think you must have suffered a lot of hardships in the past 2 years. Hearing his gentle voice, Icy Snow felt that the hardships she encountered over the years were nothing. When I saw you, all the hardships in the past disappeared without a trace. Song Qinshu didn't expect Icy Snow, who had always been arrogant, to say such touching words of love. For a moment, he couldn't help but be overjoyed and hugged her in his arms. Just like that, the two hugged each other without the slightest desire, only the closeness of two souls in the mortal world. After a long time, Icy Snow pushed him away and said softly, "Qinshu, go and see Qingqing. After seeing her today, her emotions are a little unstable." Seeing that she wanted to say something but hesitated, Song Qinshu knew that it wasn't convenient for her to talk about Yuan Qingji behind Xia Qingqing's back, so she could only remind him like this. Okay. Song Qinshu didn't refuse. He was really afraid that Xia Qingqing would be stubborn again. Back then, he was tormented by her decisions in the Qin kingdom. Just now, Xia Qingqing pushed Song Qinshu into Icy Snow's arms and returned to her room with a smile. After closing the door, her smile disappeared and was replaced with a face full of sorrow. Lying on the bed, she thought about Song Qinshu for a while, and Yuan Qingji for a while. All kinds of pressure from secular ethics overwhelmed her, making it hard for her to breathe. Tears flowed down unknowingly. "Young lady, why are you crying?" At this moment, a teasing voice suddenly rang in her ears. Xia Qingqing turned around in surprise and was already sitting on the edge of the bed. "Why are you? I'm here to accompany you." Song Qinshu smiled and scratched her nose, saying with some pity. Xia Qingqing's expression was a little strange. "Why are you done so quickly this time? Don't tell me someone is impersonating you." As she spoke, she pulled his face to see if there was a face-changing mask or something. Song Qinshu was speechless. "You've really learned bad things after being with me for a long time. Your thoughts are getting dirtier." "Aya," Xia Qingqing exclaimed. Only then did she realize that she was thinking in the wrong direction. Song Qinshu laughed. "In that case, I'll let you personally see if I'm impersonating you." As he spoke, he turned to her bed. Feeling his claws of Lushan, Xia Qingqing blushed. While dodging, she said, wait a moment. I have something to tell you." "Go ahead. I'm listening." Song Qinshu didn't intend to stop at all. "Hey you, I really have something serious to tell you," Xia Qingqing said somewhat bitterly. Seeing that he still had no intention of stopping, she could only say, "I met Big Brother Yuan today." She thought to herself, "You should stop and listen to me." Unexpectedly, Song Qinshu seemed to be indifferent. "So what?" "I'm talking about Yuan Qingji. My husband, he's not dead." Xia Qingqing was worried that he didn't understand, so she explained with a trembling voice. As expected, Song Qinshu stopped and put his hands on the bed. "I know. I've been waiting for you to tell me." "You know?" This time, it was Xia Qingqing's turn to be stunned. "Yeah, I was disguised as a prison guard. I saw him," Song Qinshu answered. Xia Qingqing bit her lip. "Qinshu, what do you think I should do?" "That's easy." Song Qinshu patted her leg. "Open up." Xia Qingqing was a little dazed, but she instinctively did as he said. Song Qinshu lowered his waist. "Let's do that." Second update. Thank you gentlemen for downloading the game on the official account. Official account, Monk Lu Ru. Chapter 15-14. Ah! Xia Qingqing finally reacted and exclaimed. She looked at him shyly and angrily. "You!" Song Qinshu smiled. "What's wrong?" Feeling the pressure from him, Xia Qingqing blushed and turned her head away. "You know," Song Qinshu chuckled. "I'm just helping you make a choice." Xia Qingqing's eyes were misty, and her face became even redder. She bit her lip. You call this helping me make a choice? Of course. Song Qingshu raised his head proudly. Xia Qingqing clenched her fist. I'm really conflicted. What's there to be conflicted about? Of course you're going to choose me, Song Qingshu said rudely. Xia Qingqing was both angry and amused. Are you that confident that I'll choose you? Of course. Song Qingshu changed the topic. Even if you don't choose me, I'll just run to Yuan Qingji and tell him all the positions I've unlocked on you. You two won't be able to be together then. Xia Qingqing said angrily, How can you be so despicable and shameless? So what if I am? Song Qingshu said as he moved. In the face of love, what's the big deal about being despicable and shameless? Xia Qingqing's soul almost came out of her body. She looked at him with her watery eyes and finally sighed. I know you're saying this on purpose. You're putting all the blame on yourself to reduce my guilt. Thank you, Brother Song. Song Qingshu was stunned. The domineering expression on his face changed to a gentle smile. Our Qingqing is becoming more and more understanding. Xia Qingqing looked at the man on top of her and smiled bitterly. I don't know what's wrong with me. I didn't want to be someone else's wife. Instead, I wanted to be your secret lover. Song Qingshu's heart skipped a beat. He whispered in her ear, Not only are you becoming more and more understanding, but your words of love are also becoming more and more touching. Xia Qingqing laughed and scolded him. She patted his chest. I'm talking to you seriously, but you're making fun of me. Song Qingshu chuckled. Since you've made up your mind, you should be obedient. Be good and turn around. Xia Qingqing rolled her eyes at him, hesitated for a moment, and finally leaned over. Early the next morning, Xia Qingqing crawled out of bed because she remembered that icy snow was next door. She was too embarrassed to sleep for too long. Looking at Song Qingshu, who was still snoring away, Xia Qingqing rubbed her burning cheek. She was really going to die. Yesterday, she had actually discussed Big Brother Yuan with him in that kind of situation. However, she had to admit that the other party's domineering way of doing things was decisive, resolving the conflict in her heart. She had already realized that she couldn't go back to the past with Yuan Qingji. After all, she couldn't easily open her legs to another man and return to being Mrs. Yuan. That's good too. Xia Qingqing sighed and suddenly realized that her whole body was relaxed. When she went out, she happened to bump into Icy Snow. Icy Snow was practicing martial arts in the courtyard. Looking at the graceful figure among the flowers and her soft and graceful figure, Xia Qingqing, who was also a woman, was stunned. Icy Snow was extremely beautiful to begin with. In addition to the graceful martial arts of the ancient Tomb sect, they complemented each other and made her look like a fairy dancing among the flowers. That bastard really has a lot of luck with women. After Xia Qingqing made up her mind to be Song Qingshu's woman, her jealousy began to surface again. However, when she recalled that Xia Qingqing was Icy Snow, she didn't feel anything. At this moment, Icy Snow also noticed her. After stopping her practice, she walked over with a smile. Younger sister, you look rosy and radiant. You must have gotten rid of the knot in your heart? Ah, yes. Xia Qingqing stammered with a red face. At the same time, she secretly cursed Song Qingshu. She thought to herself that everyone knew what had happened last night, and it was really embarrassing. When Icy Snow saw her hesitant and blushing face, she couldn't help but be taken aback. Why was she so nervous? However, Icy Snow was an experienced person, after all. She suddenly understood something. When she mentioned the rosy and radiant face, she must have misunderstood something. This time, Icy Snow also blushed. She was just saying it naturally and didn't refer to what happened between them last night. Looking at Xia Qingqing's blushing cheeks and sparkling eyes, Icy Snow couldn't help but feel that her little uncle was really lucky. She and Song Qingshu got to know each other through hardship. During that period of time, they depended on each other. Now that he was successful and surrounded by beauties, not only did she not feel jealous, but she also felt happy for him. "What are you two talking about?" Song Qingshu's voice came from not far away. It turned out that he had also woken up. "We're talking about you." Icy Snow smiled tenderly. Her graceful bearing made Xia Qingqing fall in love with her. "Let's go to the street and have breakfast. Then we can pay a visit to the diplomatic corps of the Western Xia country. Let's find out whether they are the ones behind this." Song Qingshu jumped in between the two women. Then, he held their hands and walked outside. The two women blushed at once. Although they could do whatever they wanted with Song Qingshu in private, they still felt a little embarrassed to be hugged by him in broad daylight. The two women stole a glance at each other and found that the other party was also looking at them. Their faces became redder and redder, and they tried to pull their hands back like frightened rabbits. Song Qingshu didn't allow them to say anything. He firmly grabbed their hands and walked out. Seeing that they couldn't get rid of him, the two women sighed inwardly and finally let him be. In a restaurant, a group of diners was eating breakfast. From time to time, their eyes would sneak a glance at the man sitting at the table by the window. All of them revealed looks of envy. Of course, it wasn't because of his dignified appearance, but because the two female companions on his left and right were too beautiful. They watched as the man intimately fed a pastry to the mouth of the woman dressed in black on the left. The woman's red lips parted slightly, and not only did she put the pastry in her mouth, but she also seemed to lick the man's fingers intentionally or unintentionally. The group of men at the side stared blankly and wailed in their hearts, "This is really immoral, immoral." However, when the man took out a piece of pastry and handed it to the woman in white on the right, the group of people were all stunned. "Isn't this guy too daring? He's actually seducing another woman in front of his female companion?" Because the two women were both heavenly beauties, both of them looked like they had walked out of a painting. Their temperaments were also worlds apart from those maidservants of noble families. No one thought that either of them was willing to be a concubine. They only thought that a man had brought his female companion and her close friend out. As expected, the woman dressed in white looked at the pastry in front of her with a troubled expression. The group of onlookers laughed in their hearts. "This man's methods are too clumsy. If he came out with the woman dressed in white in private, he might really be able to hook up with her. However, in front of her female companion, even if the woman dressed in white was willing, she wouldn't dare to say it." However, what made the group of men's eyes pop out was that although the woman dressed in white's face was red, after hesitating for a while, she finally opened her mouth and bit the pastry. Seeing the man put his finger into her mouth, the surrounding group of diners couldn't help but swallow their saliva. Then, they immediately looked at the woman dressed in green, thinking that she might fall out on the spot. However, what made the group of diners want to vomit blood was that not only was the woman dressed in green not angry at all, but she was also watching all of this with a smile on her face. "Are my eyes playing tricks on me, or are they crazy? How can there be such a magnanimous woman in this world? I don't know what kind of *T luck this man has to have two fairy-like women at the same time. And he even has two fairy-like women on his left and right." The three people at the table by the window were, of course, Song Qingshu and the others. Sensing their murderous gazes, Song Qingshu was secretly pleased. No wonder the male protagonists in the online novels in my previous life often brought a few stunning female companions to show off their love. This kind of envious, jealous, and hateful gazes is really intoxicating. "Don't be like this, they're watching." Icy Snow was a little shy, so she sat there with a red face and felt uneasy. "Just let them watch." Song Qingshu smiled and continued to pick up a pastry and stuffed it into her mouth. "Eat more, you've become thinner." Icy Snow was helpless. She could only lower her head and eat, not daring to look at the gazes of the people around her. "Ahem, do you guys know how many major events happened last night? There was never a lack of people who talked loudly in the inn. Moreover, there were many people in the inn and they were well informed. Most of the time, some rumors in the streets were not far from the truth. What major events? The group of people was instantly attracted. No matter how beautiful a woman was, she was still someone else's. It was more interesting to listen to gossip. The current king of Wei, the legitimate son of Yelu Isin, the privy secretary of the northern courtyard, Yelu Sui, was also killed. What? The group of people exclaimed. Who is so bold to kill King Wei's only son? Yelu Sui was also a well-known figure in Shangjing City. Everyone knew that he was Yelu Isin's only son. Even Xia Qingqing and Icy Snow pricked up their ears. After all, judging from last night's situation, the two of them were the most suspicious ones. Seeing that the two fairies' attention was attracted, the person showed off even more and said, after the news spread, His Majesty was extremely furious. He sent Li by courtyard to investigate this matter thoroughly. After a night of interrogation, there's a preliminary result now. What's the result? The surrounding people were very cooperative. The person glanced at the window. Seeing that Xia Qingqing and Icy Snow were also listening attentively, he then continued proudly. I heard that Yelu Sui was also killed because he accidentally heard that Yelu Qi and Xiao Ban were plotting a rebellion. What? How is that possible? The group of people instantly burst into an uproar. Even Song Qingshu and the others looked at each other. How did this involve Yelu Qi? Speaking of which, how did Xiao Ban become the emperor's father-in-law? Someone asked the same question. All the imperial palaces are in charge of His Majesty's personal army. He is His Majesty's most trusted confidant. Yelu Qi is a well-known upright gentleman. Why would he rebel? When the Duke of Zhou is afraid of rumors, when Wang Mang is courteous and modest, who can say for sure whether he is a gentleman or a villain? The person spoke frankly with assurance. Moreover, think about it. Yelu Sui also died in the imperial palace's prison. How could Yelu Qi, the chief official, escape responsibility? Third update. After listening to the suggestions left by many readers, I will set up a QQ group and only allow friends who helped download and register to join. When the time comes, red packets will be snatched in there. This will be fair to those who actually downloaded and registered the game. Previously, I was worried that there would be too many people and that the QQ group's limit wouldn't be enough. Currently, 258 people have downloaded. I believe that 500 people should be more than enough. I will announce the group number later. When the time comes, you can bring a screenshot of your game character to the group to verify it. Then, you can send red packets in the group on the weekend. When the time comes, the number of red packets will be as small as possible. This way, the money in each red packet will be more meaningful. For example, 1,000 yuan into 20 red packets or 10 red packet. Everyone will compete on their luck. Chapter 15:15. That's right. The murder happened in the territory of all the palaces. Who would believe that Yelu Qi didn't know about it? A group of people echoed. Icy Snow couldn't help but ask in a low voice, Is it really Yelu Qi who did it? I don't think so, Xia Qingqing said with a frown. She knew Yelu Qi and knew that he was a modest gentleman. She couldn't believe that he was an ambitious and unscrupulous person. Song Qingshu also nodded. It shouldn't be him. He recalled the conversation he overheard between Yelu Isin and Xiao Shun. It seemed that Yelu Isin had planned to use Xiao Shima to ruin Yelu Qi's reputation. He didn't expect Yelu Qi to take advantage of the news of his son's death so quickly. He was really ruthless. No wonder he was a traitor of the Liao kingdom. By the way, who is that Xiao Ban? Someone asked curiously. You don't even know him? Xiao Ban used to be a famous swordsman of Jinyang in Jianghu. But later it was said that he was from the Xiao family of the fifth branch of the emperor. His daughter, who was as beautiful as a flower, also entered the palace to participate in the election. Although she wasn't chosen as the empress in the end, She was given the title of concubine one. She was favored and trusted by the emperor. His father was also given the title of the emperor's father-in-law. The fifth branch of the emperor's father-in-law? Song Qingshu was secretly shocked. The power of Liao was jointly controlled by the royal Yelu family and the Shao family, and all the concubines were from the fifth branch of the emperor's father-in-law. I didn't expect that Xiao Ban would become the father-in-law of Liao. Xia Qingqing was secretly shocked. The last time she saw him, he was still a man in Jianghu. She didn't expect that he would become the emperor's father-in-law in such a short time. Yelu Qi and Xiao Banf are the emperor's henchmen and the emperor's father-in-law. Will the emperor believe that they are plotting a rebellion? Someone asked. The person who had disclosed the news before replied, His Majesty is wise and powerful. Of course, he won't believe it so easily. He has sent people from the Ili Bai courtyard to investigate this case. I heard that the people from the Secret Service of the Great Intelligence are also involved in this case. He has even summoned people from the Western Xia country's diplomatic corps to inquire about this case. Now, it all depends on the final outcome of the trial. Upon hearing this, Song Qingshu spread out his hands and said, Well, it seems that we don't need to go to the diplomatic mission of the Western Xia country this time. Neither do we need to look for Xiaoban. Icy Snow knitted her brows. Although she really wanted to retrieve the cold moon saber, a few key figures were currently being investigated, and they couldn't come into contact with them. Noticing that some of the diners would glance at her from time to time, Icy Snow lowered her voice and said, Let's go. I don't like this place. Alright, let's go. Song Qingshu thought that the descendants of the ancient tomb sect all liked to be quiet. He wasn't sure if it was a coincidence or not. Maybe they had noticed this when they were choosing their descendant. Seeing that the two beauties had left, the person who had been chatting with confidence and composure lost most of his interest in an instant. Faced with the questions of the people around him, he only replied half-heartedly. Qingshu, I want to. After returning to their residence, Xia Qingqing wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. Song Qingshu smiled and said, Do you want to see Yuan Qingji again? You? How did you know? Xia Qingqing's face turned pale. She hurriedly explained, I don't mean anything else. I just want to figure out what's going on with him, and put an end to it completely. Otherwise, I'll always be thinking about this matter in the future, and it won't be fair to you. Song Qingshu reached out and held her shoulder. He quietly looked into her eyes and said, You don't have to explain so quickly. I understand what you mean. I also saw his appearance yesterday. He probably didn't deliberately refuse to acknowledge you. He most likely lost his memory. Lost his memory? Xia Qingqing blinked. That's right. Song Qingshu had heard Dongfang Muxue mention the possibility of Yuan Qingji's survival before. Since he's still alive, it proves that the 9-transformation primeval chaos art that Dongfang Muxue speculated about really exists. However, no matter how powerful this divine art is, he was still struck in the head by a fatal blow. It's already very fortunate that he could come back from the dead. It's reasonable that his memory was damaged and has disappeared. Is that so? Xia Qingqing muttered to herself. However, she also felt that this speculation was reasonable. But I still want to see him and clarify things with him face to face. Xia Qingqing raised her head and looked at him with a pleading expression. Song Qingshu frowned. However, when he thought about it again, he remembered that when he first met Xia Qingqing, she was a loyal and unyielding woman. He admired her persistence very much. Now that she was so benevolent to Yuan Qingji, it further proved that if anything happened to him in the future, she would do the same to him. Tui, how could he think of such inauspicious words? Qingshu, forget it. I don't want to see him anymore. Seeing that he was silent for a long time, Xia Qingqing was suddenly shocked. Since she had already chosen him, she was still thinking about Big Brother Yuan. This should be a taboo for men. Song Qingshu laughed. Silly girl, I'm not such a petty person. How about this? I'll bring you to the palace to find him. However, we have to wait until nightfall. It'll be safer that way. Thank you, Big Brother Song. Xia Qingqing's heart warmed when she felt his pampering. She excitedly threw herself into his arms and kissed his cheek. However, she immediately remembered that Icy Snow was still at the side. She quickly pushed him away. Her blushing face looked extremely cute. You two sisters should rest here first. I'll go out and investigate the relevant information. I'll bring you to the palace at night, Song Qingshu said softly. Okay. Xia Qingqing was still immersed in extreme happiness. She would listen to whatever Song Qingshu said. It's a special time in Shangjing City now. Be careful on the way, Icy Snow said. Song Qingshu laughed. Don't worry. With my martial arts, no one in the world can keep me here. On the contrary, you two should not go out for the time being. Otherwise, you'll be recognized. We got it. After coming out of the mansion, Song Qingshu hurried in the direction of Zhao Min's house. After all, there was no news from him after he left yesterday. She must be waiting anxiously. Along the way, he secretly sighed. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that he couldn't split himself. Wouldn't it be wonderful if he could split himself and leave one with each of his confidants? Wait, does this count as cuckolding myself? Song Qingshu suddenly had an extremely strange expression. Time passed by while his imagination ran wild. Soon, he arrived at Zhao Min's house. Originally, he was worried that she had gone out. However, when he entered the courtyard, he found that she was burning incense and playing the guqin in the pavilion. Song Qingshu clapped his hands and praised, "Your Highness, you're really amazing. It's like an immortal's music that lingers in the air for 3 months." Zhao Min ignored him and continued to play the guqin. Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. He knew that she was angry, so he didn't dare to disturb her. He just listened quietly at the side. The distant sound of the guqin gradually calmed his anxious heart. In addition, he could also appreciate her white and slender hands. It wasn't a difficult thing to bear. After the song ended, Zhao Min put away the guqin and stood up. She rolled her eyes at him. "You're using some nonsense idioms. Do you know anything about music?" Song Qingshu smiled awkwardly. "I don't know." He was really a layman in this aspect. "Why? You're willing to come back from the land of tenderness?" Zhao Min's next words made him anxious again. Song Qingshu was shocked. He hurriedly sniffed his clothes. Was it because he didn't change his clothes and she smelled the fragrance of Xia Qingqing and Icy Snow? But she could smell them from so far away. Was she born in the year of the dog? I don't need to smell to know. Zhao Min seemed to have guessed his thoughts. She snorted. Yesterday, the imperial palace deployed to capture 2 beautiful women. From the strange weapon of one of them, it's easy to determine that she's Xia Qingqing of the Golden Snake Camp. I don't know who the other woman is, but she's most likely your confidant. Song Qingshu smiled awkwardly and didn't know how to respond. Zhao Min walked past him and continued, "When our eldest young master Song learned that his little lover was in trouble, he naturally rushed over to save them. Coincidentally, he ran into Yelu Sui in the cell, who had lustful thoughts towards your 2 little lovers. In a rage, you killed him with a knife and then ran away with your 2 little lovers. It's just that poor Yelu Qi and Xiao Ban he became your scapegoat. Although Xia Qingqing was foreign yuan in name, how could her relationship with Song Qingshu be hidden from Zhao Min's penetrating eyes? As for Yelu Sui's character, there was no one in Shangjing who didn't know about it. He appeared in a cell with 2 stunning beauties in the middle of the night. Even if one used their toes to think, they would know what he wanted to do. The inference that followed was logical. A trace of astonishment flashed across Song Qingshu's face. Then, he smiled and said, "Princess is really a female Zhuge. With just a little bit of information, you were able to restore the whole thing so accurately. Unfortunately, you guessed the most important point wrong. A strange expression appeared on Zhao Min's face. Clearly, she was also very curious about where she had gone wrong. Song Qinshu said, I didn't kill Yelu Sui. Although I did have the intention to kill him, his identity is a bit special. In addition, he had already been beaten up, so I let him go. I didn't think that he would still be unable to escape death in the end. Special identity? A Liao Wei Wang shouldn't be able to scare our eldest young master Song, right? Zhao Min was puzzled. But she reacted quickly. Oh, so it's because he is Yelu Nanxian's brother. Eldest young master Song really is merciful. Hearing her keep calling him eldest young master Song, it was clear that she was extremely angry. Song Qinshu broke out in a cold sweat and hurriedly explained, Actually, the reason why I came back so late last night was because I found someone suspected to be Murong Jingyue. Hearing the news about Murong Jingyue, Zhao Min's attention was indeed attracted. Only then did Song Qinshu tell her about his pursuit of Xiaoban. Of course, he tried his best to minimize the presence of Xia Qingqing and icy snow. Xiaoban? Zhao Min was silent. I guess he is most likely after the secret of the Mandarin duck saber. But now that he and Yelu Qi are involved in the rebellion, I'm afraid he can't even protect himself. Unfortunately, we still haven't found Murong Jingyue's whereabouts. Song Qinshu said apologetically. Seeing that he was still concerned about her, Zhao Min's expression softened a little. Don't worry, the more he hides, the more his foxtail will be exposed. The promised 4 chapters have been completed. Thank you for your continued support. Chapter 15-16. What do you mean? Song Qinshu asked in confusion. Zhao Min stood with her hands behind her back and looked at the vague outline of the palace in the distance. If he had disguised himself as a normal court official, we would have found him long ago. Now that we have investigated a few more suspicious people, we still can't find him. There are 2 possibilities. Either he is not in Shangjing at all, or his status is higher than the people we found before. Only then would he have enough resources and ability to hide his track. Song Qinshu's eyes lit up. He couldn't help but think of the detective dramas in his previous life. Ordinary people would leave behind a lot of clues and traces when they committed crimes, but some experts would not leave any traces or clues for the police. But this would expose their identities to a certain extent. Such a brilliant anti-investigation awareness was most likely someone from within the legal system. Now that he thought about it, Murong Jingyue's matter was similar. The more perfect the concealment, the more a fox's tail would be exposed. Who do you think killed Yelu Isen's son? Song Qinshu suddenly thought of this matter. He wanted to see if he could get any information from Zhao Min that he didn't know. Zhao Min also frowned slightly. Of course it's not Yelu Qi or Xiaoban. I thought it was you who did it. Since you say it's not, then it's worth thinking about. Yelu Isen has political enemies in Shangjing, but I can't think of anyone who would dare to kill his only son and do something so irreconcilable. Yes, the waters in Shangjing are getting muddier. Looking into the distance, Song Qinshu's expression was also grave. Zhao Min muttered to herself for a moment and suddenly said, I haven't been able to find any news of Murong Jingyue. I suspect that he might be hiding in the Imperial Palace. Tonight, you and I will go to the Imperial Palace to investigate. Song Qinshu was dumbfounded. He remembered that he and Xia Qingqing had agreed to go to the Imperial Palace to look for Yuan Qingji that night. If the girls met up at that time, although they might not end up fighting, that kind of scene would not feel good. Why? You don't want to? Zhao Min frowned slightly. That's not it. Song Qinshu reacted quickly and quickly found an excuse. After all, the palace is heavily guarded. It's fine if I go in and out alone, but if I bring someone with me, the probability of being discovered will be greatly increased. It would not be good if I act rashly and alert the enemy. Zhao Min looked at him indifferently. After a long time, she nodded and said, "What you said is not unreasonable. How about this, you can go and investigate by yourself. The palace is so big, and it will be faster for you to go alone. When the time comes, you can search carefully to see if there are any clues." Song Qingshu secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Zhao Min did not insist. Otherwise, he really did not know how to deal with the situation. "I'll go check on the Xixia diplomatic mission first to see if they have anything to do with this murder case. I have a feeling that the murderer this time is inextricably linked to Murong Jingyue," Song Qingshu said. "That's good. Anyway, we don't have any clues about Murong Jingyue for the time being. It's easier to analyze with more information." Zhao Min agreed. Although she was smart enough, she couldn't speculate where Murong Jingyue was hiding without enough information. When Song Qingshu was about to walk out of the pavilion, Zhao Min suddenly said, "If you don't come back at night, remember to inform me in advance. I waited for you all night yesterday." Song Qingshu looked back in surprise. Zhao Min had already picked up a cup of tea and drank it as if she hadn't said a word. Song Qingshu suddenly felt very soft. What she said just now was like a wife saying to her husband who didn't come back at night, "What are you waiting for? Go and check." Zhao Min didn't know why she said that. She had to hide the blush on her face by drinking tea. But when she found that he kept staring at her, she couldn't help but become angry. "Okay, I'll go." A smile gradually appeared on Song Qingshu's face. He walked a few steps and then turned back. "By the way, there are so many places to check in the Imperial Palace today. I probably won't come back." Zhao Min snorted coldly. "It's none of my business whether you come back or not." Song Qingshu's breath caught in his throat, but he liked her tsundere look very much. After Song Qingshu came out of the small courtyard, he went all the way to the announcing emblem courtyard. The people of the Western Xia country's diplomatic corps were settled here. The one who killed Yelu Sui was neither Yelu Qi nor me. Maybe someone in the Western Xia country didn't want to see the marriage succeed. Thinking of the possibility that Xia Qingqing had mentioned before, Song Qingshu's eyes became sharp. He tiptoed and snuck in silently. He found that the soldiers of the announcing emblem courtyard were almost twice as many as usual. Maybe too many things had happened in Shangjing recently. First, the Southern Song dynasty's diplomatic corps was robbed and killed. Then, Yelu Sui was also killed. They were worried that something might happen to the Western Xia country's diplomatic corps, so they sent more people to protect them. As he snuck in, he found that the people of the Western Xia country's diplomatic corps were gathered in a study. There were also Western Xia soldiers guarding outside. But this was not a problem for Song Qingshu. He quickly found a gap between the guards and cut in. Then, he hung upside down under the beam outside the window and began to eavesdrop. With his current skills, even if there was a wall between them, the conversation inside could not be hidden from his ears. "There are more and more Khitan soldiers outside." Duan Yanqing's voice was very distinctive. "Humph, they keep saying that they are here to protect us. We have so many masters here. Why do we need them to protect us? I think they are here to monitor us." Yunzhonghe's shrill and feminine voice was also very obvious. "Well, it's none of our business whether they are protecting us or monitoring us. There's no need to shout." Princess Yinchuan's clear voice rang out. "Yes." Although Yunzhonghe was lustful, he did not dare to have any disrespectful thoughts in front of this incomparably beautiful Princess Yinchuan. How could he dare to say no after hearing her words? "I'm curious about who killed Yelu Sui this time. Was it because of Yelu Isin, or did they want to ruin the marriage between our Western Xia and Liao?" Li Qinglu stood up and opened the window. She said with a frown. Fortunately, Song Qingshu sensed that she was coming to the window. He curled his abdomen in advance and tightly clung to the roof beam. Today, Li Qinglu was wearing a traditional Western Xia dress. She wore a red dress and her hair was combed into countless delicate braids. She really looked like a fairy in flames. However, Song Qinshu had no time to appreciate her beauty. He was worried that she would suddenly raise her head. If that happened, he would have nowhere to hide. Hearing her words, Song Qinshu understood that Yelu Sui's death was not caused by the Western Xia's envoy. Is it possible that Prince Liang is behind this? Yi Ernyang said hesitantly. Li Qinglu glanced at her and said lightly, Prince Liang is the pillar of our Xia kingdom. How could he do this kind of thing that is detrimental to the national interests? Don't mention this kind of thing again. Yes. Being glanced at by her, Yi Ernyang felt a chill in her heart. She hurriedly bowed and said yes. Outside the window, Song Qinshu secretly thought that the Prince Liang mentioned by Yi Ernyang was the younger brother of the Western Xia Emperor. It seemed that he was also interested in inheriting the throne. Naturally, he did not want to see the crown prince get strong support through the marriage. Li Qinglu immediately stopped her from continuing. This was also a common practice. She was probably afraid that there were spies in the room, so she deliberately said such words to numb him. Is it really a power struggle within the Western Xia kingdom? Song Qinshu frowned. He always felt that it was not so simple. Suddenly, Li Qinglu said, relatively speaking, I am more suspicious that it was done by the Jin kingdom. After all, the Jin kingdom and the Liao kingdom are enemies. Destroying the marriage between the two countries is the most beneficial for the Jin kingdom. Outside the window, Song Qinshu secretly shook his head. This time, the Jin kingdom did want to destroy the marriage between the two countries, but they sent me. The branch of the washing clothes brothel in Shangjing City is under my control. They did not do it at all. Li Qinglu then said, also, in the southern Song dynasty, I saw traces of the Imperial City Department in Shangjing City not long ago. You should know that the Imperial City Department is full of the Shui family, and the Shui family is Jia Shidao's ally. If the marriage is successful, then the Jin kingdom and the other countries will be doomed. Han Xingzhou, who presided over the southern Song dynasty's northern expedition, will also rise. I am sure that Jia Shidao will not want to see this situation. Song Qinshu's heart skipped a beat. Yes, Shui Yi's people had just killed the southern Song dynasty's delegation. According to Qin Keqing, they were here for the Mandarin duck knife. This time, it was very likely that he was the one who killed Yelu Sui and stole the knife. With a plan in mind, when Li Qinglu turned around, Song Qinshu took the opportunity to leave the announcing emblem yard and then went to the place where Shui Yi's people were staying. When he found the place, he was surprised to find that Qin Keqing and the others were already gone. What surprised him even more was that they did not change places voluntarily. The room was in a mess. Many tables, chairs, and windows were broken. Obviously, there had been a fierce fight. There was a lot of dark red blood on the floor. He did not know whether it was Qin Keqing's or the attackers. I wonder if Qin Keqing is okay. Song Qinshu did not care about the others, but he had a relationship with Qin Keqing after all. But then he thought about it. Shui Yi's people were very good at martial arts, and Jia Zhen's martial arts were also good in the martial arts world. It should not be difficult for him to protect his companions. Who attacked them? Song Qinshu felt more and more clearly that there was a mysterious force in Shangjing City that was like a giant beast that chose people to devour. Unfortunately, he still knew nothing about it. After looking around again, he still could not find any valuable clues. Song Qinshu could only return to the washing clothes yard's stronghold and go to the palace with Xia Qingqing to solve Yuan Qingji's matter first. Upon seeing him return, be it the lively Xia Qingqing or the cold icy snow, both revealed a hint of delight. Did you find anything? Song Qinshu roughly told them the information he got from the Xixia diplomatic mission and what he saw in the stronghold of the imperial city. Of course, he did not mention the matter with Zhao Min. Now it seems that the clues are broken again. Icy Snow sighed softly. She blamed herself for losing her husband's treasured saber. Song Qinshu hurriedly comforted her. Don't worry, I will find the cold moon's saber. Thank you, Qinshu, Icy Snow said softly. Song Qinshu smiled mischievously. Sister-in-law, how do you plan to thank me? Noticing Xia Qingqing's playful gaze, Icy Snow blushed. You are always so frivolous. Song Qinshu laughed. Sister-in-law, take your time to think about it. When Qingqing and I come back from the palace, we will look for you. After saying that, he left with Xia Qingqing. This person, Icy Snow, stamped her feet and blushed as she watched the two disappear. But no matter how cold her temperament was, she was still a young and upright woman. When she thought of what happened that night, her heart could not help but beat faster. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.